This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, we're back. You couldn't get rid of us. You thought Mandalorian season ended. We had nothing else to talk about. Well, we have plenty to talk about, a lot to talk about. A dump happened, basically, on New Year's Day. Well, it was a good dump. Cobra Kai Season 3 got, released on Netflix, and they released the entire season. And we are back on Pop Goes to the Couch to break it down. We're going to do this in 4 parts, since there were 10 episodes. But also, we've never done a Cobra Kai real a deep dive on Place to Be Nation Pop here. So we're going to talk about, actually, on this episode, we're going to cover the first 2 seasons. We're going to recap those, and then do the season premiere of season 3, and then we will back with 3 more episodes. We will cover 3 episodes in each of those shows. So tonight the crew is here. Let me introduce them, get them in here. First off, Shawn Kidd. Hey, Shawn, how you doing, man?
Hey, good evening, Andy, and Happy New Year. And I'm sure we had many good dumps over the holiday. However, this one was a nice surprise that we got, that they dropped all these on New Year's. So really cool that we were able to come back and do this show so fast. So great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Also joining us is Scott Shifflett. Hey, Scott, how's your new microphone?
It sounds great, Andy. Hopefully you guys can hear me so I can strike fast, strike hard, and show no mercy.
Awesome. And rounding out the quartet from the beginning this time, Mr. Tim Capel. Tim, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And this was one of many good dumps that I experienced on New Year's Day as well.
All right, that's awesome. So yeah, like I said, we're only gonna talk a very little bit about the new season on this episode. We have plenty of episodes to chat about going forward, but we've never talked about Cobra Kai, and I really want to get your guys' sense of the Karate Kid franchise on a whole. We'll start with that, and then we'll talk about the first 2 seasons. We'll kind of give summaries of each episode, give our thoughts on any highlights, lowlights, our favorite characters that we've seen, characters we wish would go away, so to speak. So let's kind of go around, though, and talk about our history with the Karate Kid franchise. We'll start with you, Shawn. Shawn, what's your history with the franchise? Did you see the first one in the theater? Familiar with the other 2? Let's not talk about the Hilary Swank one. No, that's not fair.
Yeah. I'd rather not talk about Hilary Swank in any movie. But So very familiar. Did see it in the theaters. I was 13, so. Again, I love talking about things that are in my wheelhouse, especially when I was a child, and I can recollect things from my childhood. This one hit home for me, and again, I've talked about this in other pods, but I don't take such a serious tone with it. Is I was bullied a lot, and '84 in school in junior high, I definitely was at peak bullied at that point, and I remember seeing the Karate Kid movie during the summer when it came out. And yeah, it hit home for me. And, it's funny as you recollect and you go back and you watch the originals and you really kind of see the dynamic of LaRusso and what a whiny bastard he is and all that in the earlier movies. And then I try to recollect that on myself. It's like, man, was I like that when I was bullied too? But regardless, yeah, it hit home for me and always had a special place in my heart and still does to this day.
Yeah, same here. I saw it in the movie theater. I'm a year older than you. I did get bullied a little bit as well. I was small. It took me a while to grow into my ears and my teeth.
Well, I wasn't small. I was big and fat, so I had the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, I was that small kid that could easily get knocked over with a strong gust of wind, as well. And plus, I've been told I have a striking resemblance to Ralph Macchio, so I've been called the Karate Kid quite a bit in my life. So I've had to deal with that as well. Scott. Are you a fan of the Karate Kid movies?
Yeah, I watched them growing up. I've watched the first one the most, to be honest. I know the second one and the third one and the Hilary Swank one, but the first one I think I rented a lot growing up as a kid. And actually before, because the series was originally on YouTube, I actually watched the first movie before I watched the first season on YouTube when it came out a couple years ago. But I think we can all relate to the whole being bullied part.
Mm-hmm. Tim, what about you? Are you how are you on the movies?
Not the biggest fan in the world. I don't have anything against the franchise, but it wasn't a big part of my life growing up. I feel like we had the Karate Kid Part 1 on tape, just VHS recorded off of HBO or something, but I didn't watch it that much. Having said that, though, I went through some old photos recently of like an 80s Christmas where I couldn't have been more than 4, maybe 5 years old, and I am wearing like a Cobra Kai robe or pajamas or something, which I have no recollection of owning. So I guess it had some kind of influence on me, and certainly I can respect the series for its just kind of its impact on the culture. You think of like martial arts culture throughout like the 80s and really even into the 90s with kids taking karate lessons, and that turns into like taekwondo, and a lot of those dojos are like a total racket, right? But there was a big part of life back then, and I think these movies are kind of a big piece of it.
Yeah, we need that photo for like the picture for this pod.
Let me see if I can find it. I think I took a picture.
I will put it up on the site.
I would totally love it. And by the way, the other thing I wanted to add is it's also for the music is Peter Cetera, right? Glory of Love. So I kind of the music as well is also a big factor in this series for me as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, great soundtrack. So what were you guys' thoughts though when they announced that we were getting this series Cobra Kai and on YouTube Red, which was I applaud them for trying. You know, obviously it's now on Netflix, and luckily we're able to see the back seasons because I heard people were lauding this. It was so great, but I'm like, oh, I never really pulled the trigger on YouTube. I know a lot of people did like the free preview and tried to binge it all. I would listen to the Slash Filmcast, and Peter Soretta was going on and on about this almost every episode. I was like, oh my God, this must be really good. I got to watch it. But to take a minor character, not a minor character, but the bad guy basically, and make him humanize him a bit more and make the story about him now. And his redemption, and he's our protagonist. He wasn't the antagonist, because Johnny Lawrence or William Zabka more specifically, I think between him and Thomas F. Wilson, they were the quote unquote dicks of the '80s, like the bad guys, the guys you hated the most, because he was the bad guy in the first Karate Kid, he was the bad guy in Back to School, and he was the bad guy in just one of the guys. So. So what do you guys think though about this series going in? When did you first watch the first season? We'll start with you, Scott. What are your thoughts about them doing a series, kind of an offshoot of this movie series?
I just saw the trailer randomly one day. I think it was like a Facebook ad or something, and I clicked on it. So I was like, this is going to be terrible. Like, Cobra Kai, like who really, I mean, the last Karate Kid was that crappy Jaden Smith vehicle with Jackie Chan that no one liked. And I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, that looks pretty good. And then I saw the reviews come in, and I did sign up for YouTube Red for just for the first season. And then I forgot it for a couple of months, and I was like, wow, no YouTube ads. And then I was like, oh, it's because I'm still paying for YouTube Red. I just watched the first season on there. When the second season, I had canceled it by then, and then they all got dropped to Netflix. And from Wednesday of the 30th till the 2nd of Saturday, me and my wife ran through 2.5 seasons. Nice. So to prepare for everything, because I hadn't watched the first season since it came out, and I was just blown away at how good the first season was. Because, like you said, with Johnny Lawrence, he was an asshole, and they humanize him quick in this. You see that life has not been kind to him. He's still stuck in the 80s with a bunch of his mindset, and just to see him grow is great. I mentioned, I think, to Shawn that my favorite parts of the show are the Russo and Johnny Lawrence scenes. They just have insane chemistry. Yes. I didn't really see it in the first Karate Kid movie, but holy shit, 30 years later, I'm just blown. I just want to see them go on adventures together.
Well, they're kind of like two ships passing in. Like one came from nothing and has everything, and one had everything and now has nothing. They're kind of, so they both have been on each side the fence, so to speak. Tim, what were your initial thoughts when you heard about Cobra Kai, and when did you see the first season?
I want to say I heard this premise sort of brought up as a fan theory, like many years back. It was one of those, like, for some reason, a lot of 80s movies, you have these like fan circles that will propose some kind of high concept that puts a weird spin on the original movie. And this was one of those where it's like, well, the antagonist of the film, Johnny Lawrence, he's sort of presented as a villain, but if you look at it from his perspective, he could really be the hero. And it's one of those, yeah, okay, whatever. A little thin, but I kind of get what you're saying. And to think that they were going to make a whole series out of this, I was like, I don't know. And I'm not sure exactly why I even watched it in the first place. It was not like not a big karate fan, right? Going in, and I just thought that this had like very limited appeal. But YouTube Red at the time, they did have, like, I want to say the first 2 episodes, like a free preview kind of thing. And it was just like a Saturday afternoon, nothing going on. And I just watched them on my computer. And I was like, this is kind of not bad. And then they did the free trial, of course, which they count on people forgetting they sign up for, like Scott and like I ultimately did as well. And I paid for that for a couple months before I realized, and then canceled. But in that time, did binge the entire series and quite enjoyed it. And then I did the same thing with the second season when it came back around. Not YouTube Red, YouTube Premium by then. Real branding problems over there at YouTube.
Yes.
But that's pretty much. I was just very impressed by taking this high concept, again, something you don't really think has legs, and making the most of it. And I liked how the series caught up with the characters in a way that seemed logical, like where they would end up this many years later, but also touched on a lot of class issues, which that's sort of the meat of the show, and worked really well. So, yeah, I mean, their strategy worked on me, I will say.
All right. Shawn, what were your initial thoughts on hearing of Cobra Kai, and when did you watch the first season?
So Cobra Kai, the premise was weird for me because I remember a few years ago before they announced it, there was a thing on YouTube, some video that someone made about why Danny LaRusso was a real villain of Karate Kid. And I don't know if you guys ever saw that YouTube video, but it came out like 2 or 3 years prior to the series even being announced. And so I saw that video and I was like, I was cracking up. I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. He really was whiny. And, so when he announced the Cobra Kai show, I was like, oh my God, it's almost like a spinoff of that video of whoever made it. And I did not get YouTube Red to watch it. What I did was I watched a preview, and unless like all things that eventually happened, I figured it would come out for free. And then I think last year, season 1 and season 2 were all released on regular YouTube. And then I just binge watched the shit out of it, like within a couple days of both seasons. So it's an interesting premise. We know reboots are the big thing nowadays. And I thought it was an interesting take to see Johnny, and they, like I think Tim said, they flip-flop. So LaRusso's now the successful guy, and Johnny's now living in the same, like, almost dilapidated apartment complex like Danny lived in, or LaRusso lived in the first movie. So it definitely piqued my interest, and actually after I watched the first season, I was hooked, absolutely hooked.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't watch it till it hit Netflix, actually. But, my girlfriend was very excited. Johnny Lawrence is on her, like, remember on Friends when Ross had his list and it was laminated? She's, of like, Isabel Rossellini, those type, like, was like, that's my, okay, I get a free pass, that list. Johnny Lawrence is like the top of that. That's like her type, and especially with the car. I'm like, all right, fine. That's all there. So we've watched a lot of the episodes together. So season 1 came out in 2018, and we're kind of going to go through a brief synopsis of the episodes and kind of give our thoughts, if we have any, on each one. So the first episode of season 1 is called Ace Degenerate, and it's 34 years after losing to Daniel LaRusso in the 1984 All-Valley Under-18 Karate Championship. Johnny Lawrence struggles to make his living as a handyman while Daniel runs a successful car dealership in the San Fernando Valley. Johnny saves a teenage neighbor, Miguel Diaz, from a group of bullies at a nearby strip mall, but is arrested for assaulting them. Released from police custody, Johnny is visited by his wealthy stepfather, Sid Weinberg, who gives Johnny a check before officially disowning him. Getting drunk, Johnny drives to the All Valley Sports Arena and relives his last encounter with his former sensei, John Kreese, before his car is wrecked in a hit and run. Despite Johnny's protest, his car is towed to one of Daniel's dealerships for repairs. The next day, he goes to the dealership in an attempt to take the car back, only to run into Daniel. Johnny reluctantly accepts a free car repair from Daniel, who considers Johnny an old friend. While at the dealership, Johnny realizes that it's Daniel's daughter, Sam, who was one of the passengers in the hit and run. After Daniel says they're all better off without Cobra Kai, Johnny returns home and tells Miguel that he will be his sensei and opens his own Cobra Kai dojo with the money from Sid. So this is our reintroduction to Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso. Shawn, what are your thoughts on this first episode?
It's a lot to unpack, and it's just giving us an intro really on where they're both at in their lives. I remember the scene vividly in the car dealership where LaRusso sees Johnny. Hey, yeah, we're old high school friends. And I'm thinking, this guy used to kick your ass, and you had this big fallout at this big karate tournament, and he's acting like they're best buddies. And, you know, Johnny has to swallow a little bit of crow here. So it was really interesting to see it flip-flopped, I thought. But yeah, and then, you know, Johnny falling on hole 34 years ago, he's still holding this like cloud over his head, and his whole life is just shit. And they give you this impression his life is shit because he lost this, what would you think is a silly karate tournament, but I guess that would ruin the whole premise of the show if that's the way it was. But yeah, it's just, like I said, right out of the gate, I was hooked because I felt like we were going to get that 84 kind of cheese that we enjoyed in the first movie. And of course, it also had some great ass music. So I loved it.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think of that first episode?
I thought it was great. You know, when you see the first episode, you think LaRusso kind of a dick now, because like you're seeing it from Johnny Lawrence's point of view, and you're like, wow, like, you know, LaRusso's trying to rub it in. Like you see a lot more from his point of view, which, as I'm sure we'll get to as the season goes on, like, you know, it stops really being from Johnny's point of view, and you start seeing it from multiple characters, which I think they do with a good job of character building. But it's just like you feel bad immediately for Johnny Lawrence, and you're like, and then like when I first watched it, I was like, wow, is this what happens to every like bad guy in the movies? Like we're gonna see shows like 30 years from now of them like just being like losers, because that's pretty much what he is. Because you see from the beginning when he opens his fridge, he has a kid, and the picture was last taken in 2010. So, you know, obviously he's not seeing his kid and everything, as we'll learn with that. And, you know, we see like the new LaRusso with Miguel, and he, you know, but also you see from the beginning that Johnny Lawrence not politically correct. He calls Miguel an illegal, and he's like, what are you talking about? So, you know, it shows from the fact that, like, you know, Johnny Lawrence isn't all that great either, but I just love it. It sets the tone. We meet one of my favorite characters who's a side character, but it's LaRusso's cousin, who's a moron. And he always just makes me laugh at every scene he's in. So
yeah. One of my favorite aspects is Johnny Lawrence being stuck in the 80s, like the music, you know, the vernacular, the really the inability to be technically savvy of the day. So
and
go ahead. Sorry, Scott.
When he goes, we're jumping ahead here, but with him not being savvy, when he emails, first off, Elizabeth Shue, why is everyone still hung up on this chick 30 years after the fact? I know we're jumping ahead, but holy shit, man. But like when he sent her a message on Facebook, and it was like, I'm on Facebook on my smartphone, and it's just like, he's a moron. Or it's just great. Sorry.
Yeah, he's just, you know, he's stuck in the time when he was in his glory. That's really kind of what it is, probably. Tim, what do you think of this first episode? Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, good job of setting up the characters here, and I like that they don't push it too far with these characterizations of Johnny and Daniel today in present day, where it's like they're not immediately saying, okay, well, Johnny's the hero now, and this is why. Like, he's still kind of an asshole, right? But he's pretty hard up. His life is stalled out. And contrasted against LaRusso's character, who, by the way, they don't really outright villainize. They just sort of set him up like, well, he's a used car salesman now, so, and he's extremely successful, especially in relation to Johnny, so immediately makes him less sympathetic, right? So we're still kind of like on the side of both of these characters going in, even with the understanding that this is like a redemption project for Johnny. We know that going in, but I like that, there's a way to do this that would be very contrived and just take it too far. So I like the approach that they took. I think Miguel also, upon meeting him, is like pretty likable right away. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do with, a brand new character, any new character really. So good job all around, like on the writing front.
Yeah. All right. So before we go to the second episode, I'm going to ask you guys about a character. Let's talk about Amanda LaRusso. What do you think of Courtney Gallagher? I'm trying to pronounce her last name. So she was born in 1981. So that basically makes her 3 when the first Karate Kid happened. So she's 20 years Ralph Macchio's junior. And the only thing I've ever seen her in before this is she played Sheldon's twin sister on Big Bang Theory. Let's kind of go around though on our thoughts on her performance throughout the series. We'll touch on specifics later, but generally how the character, what do you like about the character, what you may not like about the character. So we'll start with Scott. What do you think of Amanda LaRusso?
I like that she doesn't really take any shit.
Yeah.
And she calls Johnny out on his BS. Like, I know I'm jumping ahead. I apologize, Andy.
No, that's okay.
But in season 2, when LaRusso is working on Miyagi Dojo, that's bringing in $0 and letting like his car dealerships flow by the wayside as like he blows off a meeting with one of the salesmen in Noosh who goes to his competition. And she's like calls him out on it and puts him in the doghouse, has him like sleeping on the couch, which is a trope with these with TV shows where married couples argue and sleep on the couch. But she's hard. Like with Sam, when she grounds her, she takes the cell phone away from her, and I just think she's good, and like she's not like just like a basic wife you see in these shows that are just relegated and like in my opinion just 2D. She's 3D, and she's
not one note, which is
best. Mm-hmm. And I'm not done with season 3 yet, but I watched a trailer for season 3, and it looks like she goes up head to head with probably one of the biggest villain in the whole show to me, Creasy, and smacks the shit out of him because I will say I mentioned this. I was like, he's the biggest villain in this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But I just love her. I think she's good. She's a yin to Johnny's yang with that.
Yeah. Tim, any thoughts on Amanda LaRusso?
Yeah, I'm a fan too. I like that she develops more as the series progresses, and I like that she's really an outsider to this world, right? And at times really speaks for the audience, where things start to get a little bit, let's face it, ridiculous, with just all the like karate just dominating people's everyday lives type stuff. So she's there to kind of to reel it back in to a place of, if not believability, then like plausibility. So she serves a pretty important function on top of just being a pretty good, well-rounded character.
Yeah, I think she serves as the audience, I think, when it comes to learning all about Johnny and Daniel's rivalry, I guess, and how deep it does go.
Yes, helpful when we need like an exposition dump. Yes. Also. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shawn, what do you think of Amanda LaRusso?
So I think you guys know where I'm going to go first. So very milfy, good for LaRusso. For finding I think she's beautiful. I think it's not just a matter that she's beautiful. Like everybody said, she's attractive in the sense that she's a strong-minded individual. She keeps her husband in check. She seems to keep her family in check. She helps run a business. So she's really a well-rounded, structured female character, which is really, really good for this show. And kudos, because if this is again on YouTube Red, for them to formulate a character like this that is a very, very strong character and fits right in with the mold between these two characters that have this angst between them. And she's kind of like almost a mediator as the show goes on. But yeah, I think she's a great character and a great ad for this franchise.
Yep. All right. So season 1, episode 2 is called Strike First. Miguel begins his training with Johnny, who bullies him for his asthma and his low self-esteem. The health department informs Johnny that the dojo needs a lot of work before he can officially teach students. Meanwhile, Daniel and his wife Amanda argue that after Daniel scolds Sam for inviting her friends over for a pool party without her parents' permission. Reconciling with Sam, Daniel learns that she is romantically interested in a boy named Kyler and offers to invite him over to a family dinner. At school, Miguel befriends social outcasts Dimitri and Eli. During lunch, they talk about the rich girl Sam hangs out with and discover that Kyler is one of the bullies who attacked Miguel. Johnny is informed that his son Robbie Keene has been caught with drugs at school. During dinner, Daniel notices Kyler's bruises and learns he received his injuries from Johnny. Kyler lies about why Johnny attacked him, and Daniel goes to the dojo to confront Johnny. So we learn, we get more character introductions in this episode. Tim, what are your thoughts on Strike First, where we kind of start to open up, peel back the layers, I guess, of the onion, so to speak?
Yeah, so getting to know the LaRusso family, now the immediate group of not just Amanda and Daniel, but their daughter Samantha, and they also have a son who's a real annoying piece of shit.
Yes, I can agree.
I will also, I guess, go ahead and go on the record to say I don't like Sam. I don't like her one bit. And I don't know if that's by design or if the character just like isn't hitting in the way that the show wants her to. Just like she's constantly making like bad decisions, which she's a teenager. Okay, fine. But like never really faces true consequences for her actions. And again, this may be part of, well, look at her family situation. Again, as a contrast to Johnny, like she's considerably more privileged, right? So she could get away with a lot of this stuff. But it has kind of a pile-on effect as the series goes on. So I gotta say, not a big fan of Samantha LaRusso. But yeah, good to meet the family. And she's, by the way, dating, I guess at this point, Kyler, who's one of the kids who was bullying Miguel and got his ass whipped by Johnny, who was arrested for beating up children in a very like funny moment. So yeah, I like that we're like forming connections between these characters in sort of subtle ways pretty early in the show.
Yeah, Kyler, I guess, is actually your, I guess, new Johnny Lawrence, so to speak. He seems to be the the big man on campus, like the head guy there. Shawn, any thoughts? Yeah, he's a real asshole, and we will see a bit of him. Shawn, what do you think of Strike First? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think the correlation with Sam, I could see maybe with what Tim's saying is going back to the original Karate Kid and how LaRusso came across, Daniel came across, kind of a whiny, kind of, woes me, kind of like the world owes me something. And maybe it comes across a little bit with Sam, even though she's so privileged, and that might be part of what it is. She's the Daniel here, even though Miguel technically is. Sam is a little bit too as the series goes on, and I think that might be part of what you might be saying, Tim, maybe a little bit.
It is Miguel is like the sympathetic version of Daniel that the movies want to put across, and I think Sam is kind of the reality that a lot of people perceive with those movies. Yeah, there is maybe something to that.
Yeah, because I'm not the biggest fan of hers either, and I think it's because of how I felt about Daniel after rewatching the original Karate Kid and seeing it from a different point of view. So I'm kind of there with you a little bit on her. And what's the guy? Kyler is his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because he's in the first season, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't recollect him being a whole lot in the second season. And spoiler alert, we see him coming up in the third season in kind of a bigger role. So I was actually, when he came back, I was kind of surprised by that. So, but yeah, it looks like he's definitely a central character, and they entered him very early as being Miguel's bully, and we're going to see more of him here down the line. So another guy who I'm not truly a big fan of is him, and so him and Sam are probably my two least favorite characters on this whole show, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like the family dinner where Daniel is slicing the tuna and like doing it like some Japanese style, and he assumes Kyler would be aware of it, and he's like, no, you got any cheeseburgers, kind of deal. Scott, any thoughts on Strike First?
Yeah, it was just a nice, solid second episode that you wanted to see more of, and like you found out that like Johnny has to do all these safety requirements, and I think it's implied, at least it was implied to me, that the Russo was the one that put that call in. We'll see in a couple episodes that he's more heavy-handed in trying to get Johnny to shut down Cobra Kai, which kind of puts him in like a dickhead route. But like they rectify that pretty quick. I think they realized what they were being a little too heavy-handed with it. As for the daughter, she's kind of annoying, but she's not as annoying as, if you guys ever watch Friday Night Lights, as Julie Taylor, which I think is the worst character ever created, and I love that show. She's not that bad, but she's kind of annoying. And Kyler is just a dickhead. The only good Kyler is Kyler Murray for the Cardinals. And Shawn, with you saying he's disappeared in season 2 takes place during the summer, so I think that's how they wrote off that bitch blonde-headed girl whose name I'm not going to remember. But they wrote her off by going to Paris, and they could probably have just done the same thing with that as well.
Yeah, I think she's back too. She is.
She was in the first episode of season 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. All right, cool. So episode 3 is called Esqueleto. Johnny tries to recruit more students to the dojo, and Daniel decides to chaperone Sam to the school Halloween dance. Miguel's karate training is stepped up as Johnny urges him to use the Cobra Kai creed of strike first, strike hard, no mercy in his everyday life. He gives him a skeleton costume, the same one Johnny wore in the first film, for the dance. Daniel embarrasses Sam during the dance by finding her and Kyler alone in a suggestive scene. Later, Miguel overhears Kyler and his friends sexually objectifying Sam. Remembering Johnny's teachings, Miguel attacks Kyler, but is overpowered and severely beaten by the bullies. Johnny, who has been at the school handing out flyers for Cobra Kai, finds Miguel in the bathroom. Yeah, this is where, things kind of start to step up a bit. So we'll lead off with Shawn. Shawn, what do you think of Esqueleto?
I like the callback to the scene from Karate Kid with the skeleton costume. I thought that was pretty cool. I marked that a little bit for that. And Miguel being dumb enough to think that he's ready to fight because he's only been in training for an hour, and he's ready to go in and fight these bullies and gets his ass kicked, and probably deservedly so. So yeah, this one was pretty good from a nostalgia standpoint. I thought this episode stuck out to me quite a bit for me.
All right. Scott, you have any thoughts about Esqueleto?
No, just like the nice callback to the Halloween thing was very nice, and we at this point. Miguel has made some friends, Dimitri and Eli, and they're both nerds. Dimitri's they're first to run when Miguel starts fighting, taking on Kyler and his group of goons. So those are characters that we will see more, and I'm sure talk about more tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they seem to be. Dimitri is kind of I don't know if he's got Asperger's or if he's just a he's just a typical nerd, and Eli, he's got that little deformity on his lip. All right. So, Tim, what did you think of this third episode, Esqueleto? We start to, see Miguel's confidence come a little bit, but at a price.
Yeah, good stuff. Good callback to that iconic scene from the first film. The parallels start to really stack up. As the show goes on, and you have to do it. It's like such a visually interesting and fun scene from the movie, and so easy to just kind of recreate that. So why not? A little of that goes a long way. It could get obnoxious if they overplayed that hand, but certainly I don't think they've done that. Just 3 episodes in. So pretty good stuff there, and I like that the supporting cast is getting built out too with. Dimitri and Eli. I think at this point we've also met probably Aisha, who is Sam's like kind of old friend. So yeah, we're getting a kind of decent young cast, which again, like that could get annoying, depending on just sort of your tolerance for teen drama type stuff, as an adult. But I think they're doing a good job with it in this series so far.
Yeah, your Sam Aisha is your trope, your typical. They were best friends as kids, and then one grows up and is the pretty popular girl. The other one is kind of the nerdy dorky kid, and
another reason not to like Sam, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a bitch.
The way she treats Aisha, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, also you see with this show, which I don't go out of my ways to watch teen dramas that much anymore. But with this show, you see a lot of how they use social media, because normally with like teen shows, like say with like 90210, like One Tree Hill, or like Dawson's Creek, cell phones weren't really around. But with this, you can't hide the fact that cell phones are around. And actually, in this episode, the blonde Yasmin, who's like the ringleader of the Mean Girls there that Sam's in with her and Moon, like makes a Snapchat video of Aisha eating
as a pig,
eating at the thing, and calls her a pig. So that like spurns her to join Cobra Kai so she can whoop her ass.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm thankful there wasn't social media or cell phones at many times during my youth or in my 20s. But also, we wouldn't have the great stories, though. That's the other thing, too. All the times like you missed, you and your friends got lost and from each other, and you didn't find each other for a while. Yeah. Anyway, back to what we're talking about here, though. So episode 4, Cobra Kai never dies. Robbie learns of the new dojo and is embarrassed by his father's recruitment methods. Johnny gets drunk and vandalizes LaRusso Auto Body. Sam sees Kyler bullying Dimitri and Eli. At a movie theater, Kyler aggressively tries to coerce Sam into having sex, but she embarrasses him in front of the crowd and leaves, infuriating him. Johnny confronts Robbie after learning that he has been skipping school. When Johnny tells him not to throw his life away, Robbie rejects him and points out that Johnny left him as a child and that Johnny's own life is wasted. After seeing a father happily sharing a milkshake with his young son, Johnny pleads to Carmen to continue Miguel's training, vowing not to fail him again. When Miguel returns, Johnny tells him to work on his defense and counterattacks. Daniel discovers that Johnny was the one who vandalized LaRusso Auto Body. All right. So, Scott, Cobra Kai never dies. We start to see, a little more into Robbie and his story, as well as the rivalry, I guess, between Johnny and Daniel starts to amp up with, the vandalism. So, any thoughts on Cobra Kai Never Dies, episode 4 of season 1?
Yeah, that's where we finally start to see more of Robbie, and that he is kind of a screw up like his dad. Like his mom's basically a whore.
A drunk whore, yeah, basically.
I mean, I was trying to figure out the nicest way to say that, but
drunk whore is good.
Yeah. I mean, she disappears for like 6 months to fucking Cabo, but I like that we got to see him more. That kid was also in Designated Survivor, and I thought he did a good job as Jack Bauer's son in that, Tanner Buchanan. But
I'm glad you brought him up. I got something to say about that, so I'm glad you brought him up.
Okay, good. And I did like that Johnny Lawrence is still 16-year-old at heart, because he drew a penis on that Russo sign, and he also, it's been alluded to when Anush and Johnny Daniel's cousin are up there, that he took a shit up there because Anush steps in shit, and he goes, "How did a dog get up here?"
Yeah, that's right. That's very funny. Tim, any thoughts on Cobra Kai Never Dies?
Oh, yes. Okay. We are getting some more character development for Johnny. And I'd like that, they're presenting him as basically an absentee father. So that right away, you're not going to be on board with as a viewer. So we're at least getting some nuance, some shades of gray, if you will, to his characterization. And yeah, good stuff here with he and Robbie, just how estranged they are, and they don't really make much of an effort to patch that up for quite some time. So there's no like storybook fairy tale kind of ending here. I like that Robbie like is pretty close with his mom still. She's not like a responsible parent by any means, certainly, but you can tell that he's just so desperate to have a relationship with at least one of his parents, right? And he's just kind of settling for the one that is kind of present, at least part-time. So, and that's kind of sad, but right away, paints a picture of what his life is like, and you get to know him pretty quickly.
All right. Shawn, any thoughts on Cobra Kai Never Dies?
Yeah, so on Robbie, I like how they're starting to flesh it out like everyone's talked about, but you also brought up Carmen, who is Miguel's mom, and I didn't know if she was really going to play a central part, kind of just be that mom that's there, but we see she has a much, much bigger role as the series progresses. Mm-hmm. So it's good to see her come out. It's good to see Robbie. It's interesting you brought up, and I was just say this, Scott, Designated Survivor, because I love that show. And he seemed to just disappeared out of nowhere. Like the series went on, and all of a sudden he was absentee. And when I saw him on this show, I go, oh, I guess that makes sense why he left the show. So he just switched one show and went to this one. So it was good to know that he went here. And that's why he, as a president's son, he just disappeared out of nowhere, and he wasn't kidnapped or something like that. He just disappeared altogether like he didn't exist.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. He just happened to disappeared and for no reason. But at any rate, yeah, I really like the characters. I like their fleshing out. Robbie, kind of like that Dylan McKay, but he's not like rich. It's like the opposite end of Dylan, where he has a shitty life and you feel bad for him, but he's kind of that character kind of in this at this point. So yeah, I love it. I absolutely love the characters they're doing in this show.
All right. So to finish out the first half of the season, we have Counterbalance. Miguel shows improvement in both his karate skills and his general health. Daniel tries to make a shady deal that could shut down Cobra Kai, but hurts innocent business owners in the process. Sam's heavyset classmate Aisha Robinson joins Cobra Kai despite Johnny's initial misgivings about training girls. Sam discovers that Kyler has been spreading nasty rumors about her. When Kyler embarrasses Sam, Miguel stands up for her, and although Kyler attacks him, he successfully defeats Kyler and his thugs in an impressive display in gaining Sam's respect. Robbie decides to reconcile his father, but sees Johnny acting in a fatherly way with Miguel and feels he has been replaced. Amanda notices the changes in Daniel's behavior since the reopening of Cobra Kai, leading Daniel to visit the grave of Mr. Miyagi to reflect and ask for wisdom. As Daniel prepares to drive away, he suddenly recalls the discussion with Mr. Miyagi had after he gifted Daniel his yellow 1948 Ford Super Deluxe convertible on his 17th birthday, that the lessons on maintaining balance don't just apply to karate, but to one's entire life. This episode is also dedicated to the memory of Noriyuki Pat Morita. So, Tim, this is a big episode, Counterbalance. What are your thoughts on it?
It is quite a big episode here. And by the way, speaks to kind of how well-paced this first season is. So we're at the halfway point here. 10 episodes. They're 30 minutes apiece, and things are really ramping up here as we get to that midpoint. And first of all, I really appreciated like the tribute to Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi, who, can't be a part of the show, obviously. But we're going to get a lot of flashbacks. We've kind of established that as the pattern of this series. So you definitely, want to see him again in whatever form you can. So I like that. And I think it was kind of at this point that I want to say I went back and like rewatched the first movie. Because I realized there were stuff that I just didn't remember that well, just in terms of the details, and some of these flashbacks that are just presented straight out of the movie. So I was like, let me do a little bit of homework there and refamiliarize myself with this film that I largely just know through osmosis. So I was glad I did that. In the stuff with Robbie and Miguel, sort of building up their rivalry, even though they haven't really directly interacted yet. And it's sort of painful to see because you like both of these characters and you don't really want them to be at odds. But that's the situation that the show has presented us with. So you know that they're on a collision course now. So yeah, we're setting up the dominoes here, getting ready to knock them over.
Yeah, you made a lot of great points. This, I gotta tell you, out of all the series I've watched over the years, this is probably one of the most well paced season. They know really how to tell their story and tell it, appropriate, how to pace it, how to get you up and bring you up and down and when to get you to the ending. Shawn, any thoughts on Counterbalance?
Same thing that you guys said, well layered, well paced. And again, I think about this was made a TV series made for YouTube, and how impressed I am at how they've built this story out of this classic movie, and they've turned it into something pretty damn good and solid at this point. And yeah, absolutely, this is kind of the episode that sets the tone of the Miguel and the Robbie strife that we're going to see throughout the rest of this show up through season 3. And this is kind of the first beginnings of it as well. And I think the other good dynamic they did in layering this story is we really, like you said, we like both of them. So it's like we like both of them, but they're on this collision course. We're like, oh shit, we're supposed to hate the antagonist, and neither one of them really are. Because you feel bad for Robbie, you feel bad for Miguel, and it's like, oh shit, when they collide, who are you going to go for? So I thought that set up an interesting twist too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Scott, any thoughts on Counterbalance?
I can't really add on to what Tim and Shawn said. They were good, but also with this one, you see a little bit more of Dick LaRusso because he has a meeting with the owner of the strip mall that Cobra Kai is renting from. And he tries to buy it from him, and he knows that the owner won't sell it, but he tells him, you're charging less than what they're charging up the street. So then the owner of the strip mall goes and ups the rent for Cobra Kai, and it's just like a douchebag rich guy thing that you would see in 80s movies that I think it's another thing of seeing how the roles are reversed now with Johnny Lawrence and LaRusso.
Yeah, and very character you see often is that the foreign landlord who kind of rules with like an iron fist, so to speak, where it's like you pay rent, you pay now, or you pay or you leave kind of thing. And he's a caricature, I guess, who we'll see more as the series goes on as well. Mm-hmm. So episode 6 of season 1 is called Quiver. Daniel tries unsuccessfully to persuade Sam to take up karate again. The footage of Miguel's fight at the school goes viral and brings many new students to the Cobra Kai dojo. But Johnny cannot suppress his old ways and bullies them, embarrassing Eli in front of the class. Thanks to Miguel, Johnny is forced to remember his childhood as an outcast with an uncaring stepfather before he discovered Cobra Kai. Johnny admits that he had been tough and cruel to his remaining students, but refuses to apologize, telling them that life is not fair and they must overcome the challenges that life will throw at them. Eli returns to the dojo with a distinctive mohawk haircut, for which Johnny nicknames him Hawk. Robbie gets a job at LaRusso Auto to get back at his father. Miguel and Sam slowly become friends at school. Robbie finally decides he wants to learn karate under Daniel's tutelage after seeing him practice his karate forms. So, yes, now we start to see some character changes. The Cobra Kai ranks are starting to grow. Shawn, give us your thoughts on Quiver.
Well, obviously the most obvious thing in this is Eli going full C. Thomas Howe in Red Dawn. Because if you remember Red Dawn, which actually came out the same year as Karate Kid, C. Thomas Howe was this wimpy kid, and then after the war started, he turned into this gun-toting, killer, fierce guy. And this is what happened with Eli. He's turned into Hawk. And Hawk, obviously, again, another layered character that they're laying the groundwork in terms of how they're building this show that plays a long-term part in this series. So this is what sticks out for me the most in this episode is Eli becoming Hawk.
Yeah. Scott, any thoughts on Quiver?
Yeah. The biggest thing is you see that Robbie Keane wants to get his dad back. So he's like, I'm going to apply at LaRusso Auto and get a job and buddy up to him. And also Robbie Keane's supposed to be 16 years old, but was telling everyone he dropped out. And LaRusso Auto is not really doing great background checks. That's what we should be concerned about. And I did like all it was nice to see like all like the people that had been bullied and everything join up for the karate classes, and that was nice. But like you said, Johnny Lawrence just had to bully him, and you guys didn't really like Sam. I really don't like Hawk, so I think
No.
How dare you?
I'm not the biggest Robbie fan. I've kept my mouth shut though.
Wow.
Yeah,
Revelations here.
When some things happen in season 2 to Hawk, I'm like, well, fucking deserved. Sorry.
Well, you're right.
Apologize every time you
you don't have to. Scott, you're right. There are things that he does that he gets a lot of what he deserves. He's definitely not a very nice guy as the series progresses. Definitely.
Yeah. Yes. So like with this, like with him doing it, but like it's nice to see that like you had to do it with like they had to get more people in the dojo so like Johnny Lawrence could pay his bills. So that was a nice way, and it went quote unquote viral of Miguel whooping Kyler and his crew's ass. So it was nice to see. But yeah, it was a good start to the second half of the first season.
Tim, any thoughts on Quiver?
Two things. So we circled back to the rich stepfather angle with Johnny, which we saw in that first episode, and I'm glad we came back to it because I meant to say something at the time, because that kind of explains sort of Johnny's history and his status today, where throughout the films you're thinking, okay, Johnny Lawrence is like the pampered rich kid douchebag, right? And so why is he really, this poor kid, basically, whose life got stuck in the 80s, basically, and he just couldn't get out of it, and he just works odd jobs today. Like, wasn't he rich? It's like, well, he had a rich stepfather, but he's been disowned, essentially. So we now understand like his family situation, more about his background and his financial circumstances as well. So I like that they sort of did their homework there. They showed their work. Second point is just on Hawk. Here we get the birth of Hawk, and I'll say I think if you pressed me to pick like a one just favorite character from the show, I would probably go with Hawk. And I'm not going to sit here and argue like, oh, well, he's secretly the hero of this. Like, no. He absolutely, and as it goes on, becomes more and more of an out-and-out villain. And yes, does deserve the comeuppance that he gets ultimately. But I just think he's an interesting character. And I like the character transformation of like the loser who was bullied becoming everything that he despised, basically, but kind of having that chip on his shoulder and kind of having a reason for it, at least in his own mind. Like, he's certainly not the villain of his own story, and it just sort of makes sense. So
yeah.
And I would argue that he actually he's the Johnny of this show.
If
you think about it.
Yeah,
I would argue that.
Yeah, he's got the biggest arc or character transformation, really, out of anybody on the whole series.
And I'm a sucker for villains who are villains, but kind of have a point, and it's not so much that he's all that sympathetic, but you get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
The best heels are the heels that think they're never wrong.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So episode 7 is called All Valley. Johnny uses painful methods to train his new students. Miguel asks Johnny for advice on girls, and Johnny gives him a boost of confidence, leading Miguel to ask Sam out on a successful date. Johnny tries to enter Cobra Kai in the All Valley Karate Tournament, only to learn the dojo is permanently banned due to the transgressions and poor sportsmanship committed in the 1985 tournament by John Kreese, Terry Silver, and Mike Barnes. At a meeting of the athletic committee, Johnny tries to persuade them to reverse the ban, but is opposed by Daniel, a committee member. Johnny tells the committee that his teachings are different from those of Kreese and Silver, revealing that Kreese himself is dead. He says that he has learned from his past mistakes, and that his dojo is now a place where people who get bullied are taught self-confidence and how to stand up for themselves. The committee is convinced by Johnny's apparent sincerity and allows Cobra Kai to compete. This infuriates Daniel. Despite initially agreeing to help his friend sneak inside the dealership at night, Robbie stops them, using his karate skills and a security camera. All right, so this is we learn a lot more about Robbie and his kind of running buddies and his relationship with his mom, as well as, the Sam Miguel romance really sparks here. So, Scott, any thoughts on All Valley?
You just see Daniel being a douchebag rich guy again. With him, of course, he's the leader of for the All Valley on the city council for the All Valley tournament, and he wants them shut out. And it's like, as we saw that with Johnny Lawrence never really getting over losing in the All Valley tournament, LaRusso's never really gotten over how he was treated by Johnny Lawrence and Cobra Kai. It's been 30 some years, and they both are still holding on to this. And just like with the show that like they make karate sound like the coolest thing ever, which I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but but I did like that with this one. You see that Daniel starts teaching Robbie the lessons from Mr. Miyagi, and that was a nice scene. Like, everyone knows the wax on, wax off thing. That's been part of pop culture since the movie came out. But it's just another episode that, we all knew what the season finale was going to get to. We just knew what it was going to be, and it was a nice way of just the building blocks for that.
Mm-hmm. Tim, any thoughts on All Valley?
Yep, I will largely echo Scott there. And man, talk about showing your work. We're getting callbacks to Karate Kid 3 now, which is, again, I rewatched the movies in the course of following the series, and man, that third one is such a bad, dumb, dead dick of a movie. Just so sucks. But it's like, it exists. We must acknowledge it. We're not just going to retcon it because the movie sucks. Like, this is part of the series. It's part of the continuity. We're going to incorporate it. And I thought they did it in a way that was pretty logical. Of course, after his treatment, where Daniel's just getting his ass kicked throughout much of that film. And it's basically almost killed. Yeah, he would probably have it out for Cobra Kai, and still have his issues there, and do a little bit of gatekeeping now on the committee. And it just makes all the sense in the world, again, that he would be on that committee. So, this was like, I was like, I can't believe they're doing this, but they did it in a way that serves this show without having to, spend too much time retreading old ground.
Mm-hmm. All right. Shawn, any thoughts to add on All Valley?
I'll just echo a lot of what both Tim and Scott said. LaRusso is a rich guy, probably a millionaire at this point, with a beautiful wife, nice house, but he can't get over that 34 years ago that Cobra Kai did him wrong, even though he's successful now. And I like how All Valley Karate doesn't allow Cobra Kai in this tournament 34 years later because of Kreese and because of Silver. And I did pop a little bit for the throwback where they mentioned Silver, because I totally forgot about him in Karate Kid 3. So, and I remember him like that Steven Seagal looking guy, right?
Yes,
that's what he was.
Ridiculous,
Yeah, so I did pop a little bit for the Silver mention. But yeah, so again, LaRusso just comes across to me as unsympathetic and just holding a grudge. And again, I guess he should, especially with Silver, but his grudge is against individuals, not necessarily Cobra Kai. So he needs to get over it, go home, sleep with his beautiful wife, and be rich. That's kind of how I feel at this point.
All right. Episode 8 is called Molting. After being allowed to compete in the tournament, Johnny introduces additional training and unconventional methods. Daniel's family learns that Cobra Kai will compete, and only Sam thinks that Cobra Kai has changed. Daniel's cousin Louie decides to take action against Johnny. Johnny warns Miguel about Sam and the LaRusso family, telling him a biased narration of how Daniel involved himself with Johnny's ex-girlfriend Allie Mills in 1984. While skateboarding to Daniel's house, Robbie meets Sam. Carmen invites Johnny to dinner, where he learns more about Miguel's family and is inspired to clean up his life, severing ties with Sid after paying off the money he borrowed and attempting to make amends with Robbie. Daniel continues bonding with Robbie, who joins the LaRussos for dinner. Miguel works up the confidence to introduce himself to Sam's family as her boyfriend. At Daniel's house, Miguel sees Sam and Robbie bonding, leaving him heartbroken. Louie and his thugs destroy Johnny's car before Johnny beats the bikers and has Louie tell him where Daniel lives. Yeah, this episode had a lot going on, a lot of great scenes. We had Ed Asner as the stepfather, the real asshole. So, Tim, give us your thoughts on molting.
Kind of winding up for the finish. It feels like at this point in the show, cousin Louis making his big move, and that kind of backfiring on him was fun to see.
He thinks he's still in Jersey, basically.
Yeah. Robbie becoming kind of more ingrained into the LaRusso family and household. We can see some interactions, between him and Sam. Maybe that's going to lead to something. Meanwhile, Johnny making time with Miguel's mom, but sort of has a humanizing effect for him. So I appreciated that touch. And Allie getting the name drop. This is one of those, if I have like a criticism, this is such a nitpicky thing, but we sort of alluded to it earlier that, like, why would these guys, still be hung up on this chick from 35 years ago or whatever? And obviously it's because they're reminding us that this character existed, and she's played by big time movie star, Elizabeth Shue, right? It's not because the character is that important. It's because she's played by somebody kind of important. And that always bothers me with movies and TV shows where they kind of, it feels like they're making accommodations more for the performer than the story and the character. And so we're going to continue dancing around kind of this whole background situation with Allie, I guess. And I don't know, I guess it gets a decent-ish payoff, but it's not, I'll say, not my favorite feature of the show.
All right. Shawn, what are your thoughts on molting?
I get what Tim's saying about Allie. I think it's also setting up that Allie's kind of the love lost of Johnny's life. Like, that's his lifelong love that he lost, even though he treated her like absolute shit, right, back in the day. So it might kind of maybe retrospect for him, feelings of regret and someone he could have had but he lost. So maybe there's a necessity there. I mean, we'll see how that plays out, obviously, long term, but I get what you're saying about that. I also, at this point, is really where they start, again, adding another layer with Miguel seeing Robbie with Sam and building that tension there. So, again, another brick that they've laid on top to build to this showdown that is coming. So, yeah, some big stuff in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Scott, any thoughts on molting ad? Speechless by this episode.
Oh, sorry, I was talking on mute.
New mic. You gotta learn where the mute button is.
It was a nice inverse of Miguel going to the Russo's house and seeing Robbie with his girl. It was a nice callback to like what Tim said with 2 episodes ago, where Robbie goes to talk to Johnny Lawrence, and Lawrence is hugging Miguel, and how these guys were saying, like, these guys haven't even had a scene together. Like, they've had scenes together, but it's like watching each other creepily in the background. But they haven't said a word to each other. And I don't even think they say like 5 or 6 words to each other in the second season. But they're rivals, and they're destined to go face to face. And I did like in this episode where I think this was the episode where they had the family dinner, and you can tell that Johnny's mom does not like Amanda. I mean, Daniel's mom does not like Amanda because she doesn't cook. She's like, I host Christmas. She's like, your caterers make everything for Christmas. So I thought that was a fun little back and forth because, Lucille LaRusso was Mother of the Year, just letting Daniel gallivant clearly across the world. So,
go off with this strange old man.
Yeah, also disappears for 6 months.
So, she's talking about, you don't make like the real potato salad. You weren't really parenting, so, you should pick your battles.
Who's the drunk whore now?
Yeah, for real.
Throw your son and his girlfriend to golf and stuff. Come on.
Let your son go to Japan with this strange old
man.
With
an elderly man, yes. With your elderly maintenance man.
Oh, God.
All right. So the penultimate episode is episode 9, Different But Same. Johnny arrives at the LaRusso residence, but Amanda diffuses the situation by inviting Johnny over for breakfast. Daniel decides to fire Louie and compensate Johnny with a car in the dealership's trading lot. Daniel and Johnny bond during the test drive, listening to Take It on the Run by REO Speedwagon, visiting Daniel's old apartment, and sharing their lives before they met. Sam is grounded after Amanda learns that she was involved in Johnny's hit and run, causing her to miss many calls from Miguel. Aisha gets several kids in school to attend a party at the park ahead of Yasmin's planned birthday party. At the party, Aisha teaches the glamorous Yasmin a lesson. Robbie gets Sam out of her home, and they head to the party, but a drunk Miguel picks a fight with Robbie and accidentally hits Sam instead, convincing her that her father was right about Cobra Kai. Johnny drives Daniel home where they find Robbie, and Johnny is furious to learn his son has been learning karate from Daniel. Feeling hurt by Robbie's dishonesty, Daniel fires him and tells him to leave his home. All right, so we're getting to the apex of our first season. Shawn, what are your thoughts on different but same?
So much going on in this; it's almost like a finale. So you start leaning now in that dynamic we talked about earlier with Robbie and with Miguel. Miguel comes off as the heel here, so now you're going to lean towards possibly lean towards Robbie a little bit here. So I thought that was a nice little setup they had here. You know, they're building the tension with Johnny and with Daniel now, with Robbie being trained by LaRusso. Just a lot of different things that are playing here to build up to the suspense and the tension, which, again, they've done such a good job of building throughout this season that you can't wait to the finale to see how it's all going to explode. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this episode.
All right. Scott, what are your thoughts on different but same?
I loved it. And this is when you start to see that the Cobra Kai people, like, you know, they have some chips on their shoulders because they've been bullied, but they're kind of turning into dicks. Like, Aisha doesn't like Yasmin and vice versa, so why would she want to crash her party? It's like, come on, girl. Like, this girl literally made a gif of you, like, calling you a pig eating at a trough. So, like, why would you want to go to her party and just, you know, subject yourself to that? And, like, they're able to turn it around, and then, like, Miguel, like you guys said, like, hits Sam, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's just like, it's the starting point for Cobra Kai becoming the heels that we knew they would, that like they were in the first movie, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Tim, anything to add?
Yeah, we're seeing the dark side of Cobra Kai now. Maybe these kids are taking the wrong lesson from strike first, strike hard, no mercy. I don't know that I'm shedding a tear for Yasmin. Is this the remind me? Is this the front wedgie scene? Where Aisha just hoists her up by her
drawers.
By her drawers. Yes,
her knickers, as our friends would say from over there.
Thank you for that. But it makes sense. I mean, with confidence, you're kind of feeling yourself, right? And especially with these all being like a bunch of loser kids who now like have found each other and have like the resources to fight back. You could see why that they're going to exercise those resources. So I like the character work there. This all feels very soap opera-atic, which I am, of course, a huge sucker for soap opera in all its forms. So yeah, the kids we see have kind of as much going on as the adults. So everybody's got a story, nothing wasted here, and we're kind of set for our big finale.
Yep, and that finale is called Mercy. Cobra Kai returns to the 50th anniversary All Valley Under 18 Karate Championship with a full team led by Miguel. Robbie also participates unaffiliated with any dojo. Miguel and Hawk advance to the semifinals, and Aisha is eliminated in the quarterfinals, but she and Sam reconcile. Hawk is disqualified for dislocating Robbie's shoulder with a kick from behind. After arguing with Miguel, Sam leaves the tournament and returns to the family dojo, where it becomes apparent that she has not forgotten the karate that Daniel taught her. Daniel assists Robbie back into the ring, now as his sensei. Miguel exploits Robbie's injury, his injured shoulder, to win the match, and Giant realizes that his methods have corrupted Miguel. After the match, Daniel takes Robbie to Mr. Miyagi's old home and reveals that he plans to use it as a dojo to continue Robbie's training and teach others Miyagi-Do karate. At the Cobra Kai dojo, a drunk, miserable Johnny is confronted by a shadowy figure revealed to be Kreese, who praises him for resurrecting Cobra Kai. What a way to end this first season. Miguel, totally transforms. I mean, he is unrecognizable from the kid that gets beat up in the first episode. And the cliffhanger, so to speak, of the end of the season, the revelation that Kreese is still alive and is back to really start some shit. So, Scott, thoughts on Mercy?
Yeah, this just continues, like I said, with the last episode of Cobra Kai being the heels. You have Hawk injuring Robbie, and then Miguel, basically that's how he wins, is by kicking him in the shoulder again when he's down. It was nice, to see, for in the city council episode, they were saying, attendance is down at this. So, getting Cobra Kai back brings everyone back to watch karate, which is pretty amazing. But, and the ending with Kreese, which is, like I said, I haven't finished season 3 yet, but he is the biggest piece of shit in this whole series. And seeing him back, that season 2 is going to be ramped up, especially with Sam, Tim's favorite karate fighter. She's back. She's throwing her hat in the ring. Miyagi-Do is going to be opened up. So we're really going to see Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do in season 2.
Yep. Tim, what are your thoughts on the season finale, Mercy?
Oh, great stuff. You got to go back to the All Valley Under-18 Karate Championship. Have to make that your kind of big set piece. We all knew we were building towards this, and it does not disappoint. This also, I found, did a nice job of illustrating how tight the students of the Cobra Kai dojo have become. Because essentially you've got Hawk, for all his, bad attitude, giving up a fall, essentially, right? Because he's going to get himself disqualified. He has no hope of winning this thing, but now Robbie doesn't either. But Miguel still has a shot and capitalizes on it. And you're right, he's pretty much unrecognizable by the end of this. Winning the day, but maybe losing his conscience in the process, which Johnny recognizes, and he's like, oops, maybe I overplayed my hand here. And yeah, we've got the callback again to Miyagi with his old home, and now this is going to become a dojo. Cool to see Robbie fighting unaffiliated. It's not like he was repped by Daniel or anything. He's out there doing this for himself. So I like that touch as well. Kreese, I had sort of mixed feelings about. It's a good dramatic reveal, but thinking back to that character, I'm like, he's kind of a cartoonish villain, like just an 80s cartoonish type character. And I don't know if we really need that for this show. So I was kind of, I don't know, a little ambivalent about that. So we'll see where that takes us in the next season.
Yeah, Hawk kind of doing similar to what they had Bobby do in the first movie, except for he was not, like, Bobby immediately, regretted it. He was literally,
he didn't want to do it. Yeah.
Yes, and seconds after he does it, he's apologizing to Daniel profusely. And even Billy is who was a jerk the entire movie, is sitting there like, what are we doing, people? But Hawk, shows no regret.
He's just ruthless.
No. Shawn, what do you think of this season finale, Mercy?
So 47-year-old Shawn felt like 13-year-old Shawn in this whole entire episode, because it took me back to the Karate Kid, like we said, the finale of the movie. Very similar tropes in this with, the injury, and then, the heel turn almost cemented now by Miguel, and then Johnny having that oh shit moment, realization of, oh my God, this is kind of what Kreese did to me. Look what I've done to him. So I was having major nostalgia for this whole entire episode in this. And then, the Kreese reveal, I don't know if I didn't necessarily agree with Tim. I think that's a pretty cool way to end the first season, because when you think Cobra Kai and you think about how relentless the students were, it was because of Kreese. And then it also makes you remember the last time you saw Kreese was when in Karate Kid 2, when Miyagi made him look like a dope. So it's almost like he had to bring him back as a heel. And I thought that was kind of a nice little thing to add at the end. And yeah, I think he's like in his 70s now, and he's probably a little bit older, but I didn't mind it. I thought you almost had to bring him back if you were going to continue the saga of Cobra Kai, since, yes, Johnny was the student face of it. Now he's the teacher, but when you think about the true villain of the Karate Kid, the first one, it absolutely was Kreese and what he was teaching those kids. So I thought it was great.
It's me. It's been me all along. You know,
yes, yes, he's the higher power. Yes, good analogy.
So we just unpacked season 1. So we're trying to work our way forward to get you to season 3, but we still talk about season 2. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break with Tim Capel, Shawn Kidd, and Scott Shifflett. I am Andy Atherton. Our Cobra Kai part 1 of I don't know. We're going to call it part 1 of season 3. We're going to call it. Pod will be right back. PlayStation Pop. We are back here with Pop Goes the Couch. We're talking about Cobra Kai. We're calling it Season 3, Part 1. We're going to break it down 4 parts, but first, we need to kind of get to where we are right now, because we've never talked about Cobra Kai in a pod. So we're recapping the first 2 seasons. We've done Season 1. Now we're here talking about Season 2 with Shawn Kidd, Scott Shifflett, and Tim Capel. So, gentlemen, Season 2 comes on. It starts on YouTube, and again, I didn't watch it, but, it dropped at the same time. They dropped the first 2 on Netflix. That's when, basically we end up binging both. So the season premiere of Season 2 is called Mercy Part 2. That's where Johnny and Kreese have a brief fight. Johnny gets him in a chokehold, but remembers what Kreese did and lets go, scolding Kreese for this before knocking him down. Sam blocks Miguel on Instagram, saddening him. Miguel's mom notices that his darker nature is during the fight, but still approves of Johnny teaching him karate. Robbie learns the history of Miyagi-Do, and Daniel plans to open up a dojo to his wife's reluctance. Kreese tries to convince Johnny to allow him to rejoin Cobra Kai, but he refuses. Miguel and Hawk notice the chaos in the room due to the fight, and Johnny berates them on their dishonorable techniques at the tournament. Daniel brings Sam into his karate dojo while shopping. Johnny awkwardly meets up with Robbie and Daniel. Johnny tries to patch things up with Robbie, who believes Johnny has students fight dirty against him. When Johnny calls Daniel a prick, Robbie says that Daniel is a better man than Johnny ever was. While Johnny repairs Cobra Kai's dojo, Kreese returns, finally apologizing, and Johnny allows Kreese to rejoin Cobra Kai. So, Tim, what do you think of the start to Season 2 and Mercy Part 2?
Like that it picked up right where we left off, this confrontation between Johnny and Kreese that goes quite badly, but a pretty cool fight scene. So I'm already sort of like, okay, I think I could maybe work with Kreese now. And by the way, I did the exact same thing when this season dropped on then YouTube Premium, did the free trial and then canceled like 2 months later, just so that I can watch this show. And I watched literally nothing else. None of the other YouTube exclusive. They don't really have much,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They kind of just blew their wad on this show, and that's the only thing they had to offer. But anyway, yeah, like we hit the ground running here. And just lots of shifting alliances, which is just a hallmark of this series. And it can be kind of hard to keep up with because it is so rapid fire, the way things will happen and allegiances will shift. But as I said, I dig that kind of stuff. And we are not missing a beat here in Season 2.
Shawn, what do you think of the start of Season 2?
Very soap opera-y. To Tim's point, with the allegiances, okay, Sam is going to block Miguel from Instagram. Johnny runs into LaRusso and Robbie at the what is it, like a Home Depot or whatever, and there's that conflict. There's just so much conflict in this episode. The fight between Johnny and Kreese, and poor Kreese, 70-year-old man, and Johnny's beating his ass, which, obviously Johnny's been waiting to do that a long time, because if you remember Karate Kid 2, he didn't treat Johnny so well after he lost the tournament. But yeah, like right out of the gate, I'm like with Tim, I like that it started right after the last season. It just sets that allegiance shift, the soap opera, the dynamics, but a lot of stories and a lot of layers to start us right out of the gate in season 2. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, you kind of need a scorecard to figure out, like, okay, this person hates this one for this reason, but this is they're rivals here.
It's like it's like watching pro wrestling, and there's a turn every episode. It's like it gets very confusing at some point.
Yes,
I love it.
Scott,
yeah, me too. I love it.
Scott, what did you think of the first episode of season 2?
As Tim and Sean said, it was very soap opera wrestling with with this and this, and I love the awkward scene in the Home Depot where Johnny runs into LaRusso and Robbie shopping for materials, because he's shopping for materials too. But you guys failed to mention that this introduced us to Raymond, played by Paul Walter Hauser, who was the moron in I, Tonya.
Oh, that's right.
And then he ends up later in the season, he joins Cobra Kai, and
Is this Stingray?
Yeah, it's Stingray.
Okay.
He's there for,
I was about to
ask
if he was,
effect.
Yeah, because I remember he worked at that place, so I was wondering if he came in this early. Couldn't remember.
And he's just hilarious. He's like, "Oh, I live with my mom. I have plenty of money for karate," when he joins the dojo. But we're seeing Kreese, and we know, as the viewer, not to trust him, but Johnny with his complicated relationship, because as we've learned, that was basically his father figure, because we don't know his real dad. Stepdad was a piece of shit. So, where LaRusso had Miyagi as his father figure, Lawrence had Kreese, and that shaped them to be the people they are. So he can't really say goodbye to his dad, and that's why he welcomes him back at the end of the episode.
All right. So season 2 of episode 2 of season 2 is called Back in Black. Robbie wakes up and accidentally attacks his mom's new boyfriend. His mom tells him that she'll be leaving to go to Mexico for a month. Miguel tries to call Sam using Aisha's phone, but Sam sees Robbie and hangs up. Daniel tries to train Robbie and Sam to sync their karate moves, but his wife calls him out for caring more about teaching karate than his own job. After a successful day of convincing customers to buy their cars, Daniel successfully trains Robbie and Sam in syncing their karate moves. Meanwhile, 2 of Hawk's bullies, who are friends with Kyler, want to join Cobra Kai. Kreese meets Miguel, and Johnny's students embarrass him by being immature. Johnny, along with Kreese, tells everyone to be at the nearby park at 5 a.m. and makes them go in the cement truck and move it while there's cement in it to train their leg strength. Kreese is impressed that Johnny would do such a reckless thing. Daniel visits Robbie and invites Robbie to move in with him after seeing the poor state of Robbie's home. Daniel's wife reminds him that although Robbie's mom left, Johnny's still around. Daniel arrives in the Cobra Kai dojo and finds Kreese and Johnny getting beer. Kreese mockingly offers his condolences on Mr. Miyagi's death, believing that Johnny lied when he tried to persuade the committee to let Cobra Kai in the All Valley tournament. Daniel mocks Kreese and walks away. So, Sean, a lot going on here again.
More soap opera shit, circumstance. Yep. LaRusso walking in, seeing Kreese and Johnny with the beer, is going to go in there and talk to him about his son. And, of course, that goes out the window. So now you have that. Now you have Robbie moving in with them. I like Daniel's wife calling out his bullshit about run your business instead of this silly karate bullshit. Not that she said that, but it really does make a lot of sense. Why don't you go work where the money's at? But, yeah, so I like that. So, just a lot going on. Again, setting up more strife and more tension. And I love the concrete shit because that was kind of savage, and I thought that was kind of cool. And, yeah, I like this episode a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Scott, what are your thoughts on Back in Black?
We sort of see in this how Kreese can still play Johnny to get what he wants. Johnny was showing, he's like, I'm not the same, sensei as you, but then they start acting up and, it's like, oh, you're acting up in front of my dad. So, as Sean was saying, he put him in the concrete thing to spin it, which sounds pretty dangerous to me. and like we get like some Robbie and Sam flirting, and that moves at a snail's pace and like hits its zenith in a couple of episodes. But just a good episode that you know they're continuing to lay the foundation for what the season is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
go ahead.
Sorry. It shows how, like, you know, Johnny Lawrence is supposed to be cool and everything in the show, but he's still a piece of shit dad that's not checking in on his son, like, at all. Like, LaRusso is supposed to be the one that's like, hey, you know, your baby mama left for Cabo for 3.5 months. We're taking your son in. Do you want to take him? And it's like, no.
Well, I think he sees. Not that he sees more of like Miguel as like, you know, his son, like, you know, Miguel like wants to be in his life. Robbie, you know, yeah, Robbie's had a tough time, and, you know, his mom's a drunk, his dad's a loser, but, you know, I don't know. I think Johnny seemed to a lot of what's happened to Johnny since the first Karate Kid is, you know, he's ended up where he is because he takes the path of least resistance, and Miguel is the least resistant between him and Robbie. Tim, what are your thoughts on Back in Black?
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of jump off that point. It seems like Johnny's continued estrangement from Robbie is as much a way of to punish himself as it is just, you know, being an irresponsible parent. At this point, you know, Robbie's old enough and clearly pretty self-sufficient that, like, they could kind of just have a relationship, but there's just too much history, too much baggage there, and Johnny, like, he's clearly very ashamed of his behavior. Like, he knows he dropped the ball, he fucked up, and like he almost doesn't think he can make amends and isn't going to make an effort to make amends because he kind of thinks he doesn't deserve it himself. So yeah, there's kind of some interesting psychology, I think, at play without, you know, beating you over the head with it. Gosh, what else here? Yeah, we're another very busy episode, but that's mainly what I wanted to touch on, just that relationship between Robbie and his dad, which we haven't like really dug into yet, and it's kind of cool that, you know, Robbie is a Ronin no longer. Now he's properly being trained by LaRusso. He's got, you know, a dojo, and he's sort of becoming a part of this, you know, this surrogate family, essentially.
Yep. All right. So
you're happy for him, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Season 2, episode 3 is called Fire and Ice. While Johnny is trying to use his Dell laptop for the first time, he sees a Miyagi-Do ad on YouTube where Daniel is promoting Miyagi-Do karate for free. Chris sees this and wants to fight fire with fire. Johnny tells Aisha to make a video ad that will advertise Cobra Kai. Meanwhile, 2 teenagers want to join Miyagi-Do, but when Daniel tells them to wax on off the fence, that's not right. But in this description, they decide to join Cobra Kai instead. Miguel finds a picture of Robbie on Johnny's refrigerator and realizes that Robbie is Johnny's son. Miguel tells Hawk, and when they confront Johnny, he admits the truth but refuses to elaborate more on the matter. Johnny later takes Miguel to eat hamburgers and fries and confides in him that on the day Robbie was born, he wasn't there for him because his mother, at the time the only person that Johnny cared about, had passed away. Johnny was afraid of being a father and failed Robbie on his first day. Johnny vows never to fail Miguel and support him. Aisha texts Miguel that people want Cobra Kai to make a performance and that Johnny sees an opportunity and agrees. Daniel, Sam, and Robbie do their Miyagi-Do performance, but Cobra Kai arrives and their performance outshines Daniel's performance, causing Cobra Kai to become more popular. So, Scott, what are your thoughts on Fire and Ice? This is quite the this is where Johnny's inability, in lack of knowledge of tech, and as well as the real showmanship here at this carnival, I guess, in this episode.
Yeah, him fighting against computers was something like my parents do. So that was, I could understand that. It was played for laughs, and I enjoyed it. I did also like that they got rid of the Robbie is Johnny's son thing, and now Cobra Kai knows. I kind of hate when secrets like that are like just pushed along for episode after episode in shows, and then like told in like the second to last one, and it's some big reveal that we already knew about. So I'm glad that was taken care of and swept under the rug very quickly. I will say if I was to sign up for karate, I'd probably, and I was at that showcase that they had, I would have signed up for Cobra Kai because Miyagi-Do sounded boring as shit, while Cobra Kai had pomp and circumstance. And yeah, it was just a good episode, and it was a nice contrast with like, all like Miyagi-Do's like more defense and Cobra Kai's like more glitz and glamour. So,
Yep. Tim, what are your thoughts on Fire and Ice?
Yeah, I gotta figure when Miyagi-Do Karate's big selling point is come sign up with me, give me your money to do hard labor, and some really boring karate if you're lucky, and then Cobra Kai busts out this this very charismatic type of exhibition. I'm signing up with them too, every day of the week. And I would certainly care more about karate than my job as well. If I had something as cool as Cobra Kai to join up with. I kind of popped at this episode description where we're apparently waxing on and waxing off the fence, which, as you said, Andy, is not what happened.
No.
So that's, I guess, a weird shorthand to say that that LaRusso is putting all the kids to work doing chores and stuff. But
yes.
Yeah, I don't remember any waxing on or waxing off of fences in this one.
Yeah, you get a splinter.
Yeah. I mean, beyond that, we're now getting that actual backstory I alluded to earlier between Johnny and Robbie, failing him the first day of his life. That's kind of tough to overcome. So I totally get it. It sort of strengthens the bond between Johnny and Miguel at the same time. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Shawn, what are your thoughts on Fire and Ice?
Not much more to add what the guy said. But the one thing I will add is the little presentation reminded me of Revenge of the Nerds a little
bit,
where the jocks did their little spiel, and then the Landas went on and did that whole like electric show. It reminded me totally of Cobra Kai doing the same thing to Miyagi-Do, so it totally popped me because that's what it made me think of. That's the only other thing I had to what everyone said. You and I are probably the only two that know what we're talking about. It was kind of like, what the fuck are these two thinking right now?
Correct.
I mean, I know the movie. I just it's not a favorite.
There's a very famous scene in Revenge of the Nerds that is very similar to this one. It's at the end. Yes, very similar.
Yes, basically you have the alpha betas and the pies, basically cross-dressing, and just the girls dress up as football players, the guys dress as cheerleaders, and they sing a song. But then you have the nerds, really
rapping electric light show is what.
Yes.
I yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait until the reboot where we learn that the jocks were really the heroes all along.
Yes. Yes, we get Ogre the series. All right.
God.
So episode 4 of season 2 is called The Moment of Truth. Dimitri goes to Cobra Kai where he meets Kreese and annoys him until beaten and thrown out by Kreese. Later in the Cobra Kai dojo, new student Tori volunteers to fight Miguel and proves to be his equal. Aisha and Tori bond at a convenience store. Aisha asks Tori if she would like to go to the beach with her, and she agrees. Meanwhile, Dimitri tells Hawk that Kreese beat him bad, but Hawk dismisses him, calling Dimitri a coward. Miguel tries to tell Johnny about his worries about Kreese's influence, but Johnny reassures him that everyone deserves a second chance. Johnny tries to convince other people to join Miyagi-Do, but fails. Sam and Aisha bond after seeing each other, but Sam notices that Tori stole a bottle of vodka and believes she stole her mom's wallet. Tori pushes Sam down a food table, embarrassing her. Robbie tries to stage a fight with his former friends to convince people to join Miyagi-Do, but he is hit in the back of the head when Daniel arrives to save him. Robbie recorded the fight, but Daniel asks him not to upload it, explaining that students should join Miyagi-Do out of necessity. Dimitri arrives and decides to join Miyagi-Do. I love this episode because I love Dimitri showing up at Cobra Kai and being very Dimitri-esque and kind of getting his ass kicked a little bit for it. Also, the introduction of Tori, who was so badass, and it was kind of threw me though because the girl who plays Tori, her name, I'm trying to find it right now.
Peyton List.
Peyton List. She was on a couple of Disney shows. I think Jessie and some other show that my daughter watched as a kid. And she was like this prissy little blonde, rich girl. And now you see her this badass, karate bitch, basically. Also, we get a Kim Field sighting as Aisha's mother. So I really pop for that. So, Tim, what are your thoughts on the moment of truth?
Okay, so let's face it. Dimitri is super annoying, and I would want to beat his ass and throw him out the dojo as well if I was in Cobra Kai. Certainly not my favorite character, but I mean, I'm not going to dog him too much. Like, he's just kind of a type of character that I'm always going to find pretty annoying. But I think that, I mean, the performance, the acting is fine. I just, I kind of can't stand him. Tori, I kind of am on board with that character. It feels like something they sort of needed in this show. I'm not wild about just the casting choice because I swear to God I have the hardest time telling her and Samantha apart a lot of times. It just, unless they're both in a scene together, which fortunately they were for a good portion of this episode, I'm like, it takes my brain a minute to like recalibrate. Oh, I'm looking at Tori, not Sam, vice versa. They just look. They just both have that very basic white girl look. And they can't help it. They can't help it. Look,
yeah.
But it kind of messes with my head.
Shawn, thoughts on moment of truth?
So I'm still trying to think through Sam and Tori being the same kind of visual, but I
all
actually
white
thought...
people look alike to me. We're all white girls.
That's a pod for another time. I would love to explore.
Basic.
All white girls probably, but I don't know. I wondered if that was just me. It sounds like it is, but that's fine.
No, listen. I believe they had to introduce Tori because we needed an antagonist for Sam, which we know that becomes a big plot point in this series as it goes on too. And I thought she was a great add to the show, and she's a total badass. So I actually liked her as a character. You could tell she's sort of wrong side of the tracks. I also like that she went to the Beverly Hills 90210 Beach Club and stole some liquor and stole purses, which we found out wasn't. It was those guys. I believe it was those dudes that Robbie used to hang out with, if I'm correct. I think I'm
Robbie's
right about that.
buddies. Yeah.
But I like that they introduced the Trophy Beach Club or Country Club or whatever it is. That popped me a little bit. But so again, good characterization to add Tori in here, and a little bit of that exploration of Johnny as a parent. So yeah, again, just building layers and characterization, which this show has done a really, really good job of. So I'm in.
Scott, anything to add on the moment of truth?
Yeah, Miguel needed a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what it is. Like,
I disagree.
We knew Robbie and Sam. I mean, Shawn, that's what I thought at first. But as the series goes on, like, when I first saw her, I was like, Miguel needs a girlfriend. But like, and they have her being a badass because Sam's supposed to be like a priss, rich girl.
Well, you kind of knew once she became friends with Aisha that was going to cause strife between her and Sam already. You knew that was going to happen.
And, speaking of Aisha, she is severely downplayed in the season because I'm not saying she was like a main focal point in season 1, but she was high up there because she had she was picked on and everything. And like, she was like the lead girl for Cobra Kai. And like, she is like, when I was watching, I was like looking for her. I was like, is she even in this scene? And like, she's in this episode, maybe a couple more, but like, I don't know if they. I think fantasy booking here, they should have had her and Sam just go against each other, but I don't know if she quote unquote
it is
has the
weird.
right look.
You're right. Like Tori kind of took over the role that Aisha was sort of settling into already. Yeah, you've got a point there.
Yeah, the alpha female basically to counter, Sam. Everybody, there's a lot of it's all about counterbalance. Miguel, Robbie, Johnny, Daniel. Sam and Aisha didn't really have that because, down deep there, there was still a friendship under there. It just, had been severely damaged. And once they kind of reconciled, you knew that, Sam needed a rival basically to make her have anything to do really on the series besides, be the Yoko between, Robbie and Miguel basically.
It would have been an interesting dynamic to have her and Aisha go. I think that's an interesting dynamic they could have played as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have done that.
maybe they thought they were like already doing that story with Dimitri and Eli.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It would ring kind of too similar perhaps to just, do that with Sam, two other established characters. When you've already got that kind of story playing out, so they just bring in Tori as like a new badass bitch type.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Miguel long term isn't gonna fall in love with Aisha, so they had to bring Tori in for that too. So
yeah. No offense to Aisha.
No offense to Aisha. That just wasn't gonna happen.
Right. So episode 5 of season 2 is called All In. In a flashback, Eli's mom reports the fact that he is being bullied. In the present day, Eli/Hawk updates the tattoo on his back. Dimitri is learning karate, but he is frustrated and reveals that he wanted to learn karate to stand up to Eli. Hawk sees a Yelp review of Dimitri giving Cobra Kai a negative rating and goes to confront Dimitri. At the mall, Hawk finds Dimitri, and just before he was about to beat him up, Sam and Robbie join in and defeat Hawk and his gang. Dimitri gains new resolve to learn karate properly from Daniel and slowly improves. Moon, Hawk's girlfriend, breaks up with him because of his violent behavior. Kreese finds Hawk a punching bag and convinces him to vandalize Daniel's dojo. Meanwhile, Miguel kisses Tori, and Sam and Robbie almost kiss before Robbie thinks they shouldn't, as he is a guest of the LaRusso family. Johnny goes to the LaRusso car company after going to Robbie's old home. Ultimately, he beats Daniel's worker, who reveals that Robbie is living with Daniel. Heartbroken, Johnny gets drunk, but Miguel's mother, Carmen, convinces him to let go of the rivalry. The next day, Daniel discovers the destruction of Miyagi-Do. Mr. Miyagi's Medal of Honor is stolen, and the vandalization of his 48 Super Deluxe that Miyagi gifted him. Daniel goes to Cobra Kai and confronts Johnny, but nothing is resolved. Daniel tells everyone about what happened, with Kreese and Hawk not saying anything. As a result, some students from Cobra Kai leave to join Miyagi-Do. So, let's see. Shawn, what are your thoughts on All In?
This episode borderline's a little ludicrous because this is kind of where law enforcement should probably be involved. So I know I'm going to go confront Cobra Kai when they would vandalize my car or my dojo, and I'd go to them instead of calling the police. But okay, so sometimes with this show you have to suspend disbelief, and this is definitely one of those situations. It's to add more fuel to the fire. And again, here we go with the dynamic Tori and Miguel. Then you got Robbie and Sam, so more soap opera stuff. But yeah, this episode I had to suspend a little bit of disbelief just because I guess you wouldn't have a show if you called the police and they just arrested people. So I'll just go from there.
All right. Scott, what are your thoughts on All In?
This is one of my favorite episodes of the series, and
awesome.
Like Shawn saying you have to suspend disbelief. I suspended it long ago when they're using karate to whoop these people's asses. So it's just sort of like with wrestling. Like I turn my mind off. I try not to think about it. But so you see Hawk. Like, they do these flashbacks, and they do one with Kreese, too, where they sort of make you feel bad, but then they overstep the line, and you don't feel bad at all. Like, he's just pissed because of a Yelp review. Like Hawk's mad because of a Yelp review, and I did like Dimitri's like, I can't take it down. They'll take away my journalistic integrity, which he's such a nerd, but it popped me. But it was just great. And like at the end of the episode, like where they like Cobra Kai destroys the house, and then Johnny comes in, and you see him and LaRusso comes in, and him and Johnny are face to face, but in the background you see Kreese. I always want to call him Creasy, but it's Kreese. You see Kreese in the background, and that's the true villain of the show. It's not Johnny and LaRusso. It's Kreese in the background playing these games, and basically, like, he's doing some underhanded things to basically make Cobra Kai his, which, spoiler alert, happens at the end of the season. But it's just like he's the one, manipulating, being the puppet master of all of this, and it's just great. There's just so much stuff going on. Dimitri finally wants to learn because he hadn't been taking it serious, and like he makes a Game of Thrones joke, and you find out that LaRusso likes Game of Thrones as well, and this came out like around the time that the last season was coming out, before the writers of Game of Thrones took a dump on Game of Thrones Legacy, which it's not the podcast on, but I had to get my shots in. But I just loved it. I loved every minute. I love the absurd, where the hell is mall security when they're tearing up the food court and it's like 15-on-3 or something. But from this, you do see a couple of the like you said, a couple of Cobra Kai's leave at the end. You see Chris, who's one of the Cobra Kai's that turns to Miyagi-Do, and Mitch looks like Dustin from Stranger Things. I thought it was Dustin until I did an IMDb deep dive, because I was like, damn, look at Dustin double dipping in Stranger Things and Cobra Kai, but it's not. It just looks like him. You're starting to see that, not every one of these people in Cobra Kai are bad, and when they turn good, they switch over to Miyagi-Do. Sorry, I'm ranting, but I just love this episode.
All right. Never underestimate the power of a Yelp review. Trust me. My girlfriend's son, who's my son's age, has often said when he's gotten bad service or a bad meal, they're just lucky I'm not on Yelp. So be careful there who you mess with. All right, Tim, what are your thoughts on All In?
Dimitri sucks part 2. God, so annoying. Fucking kick his ass and be done with it. Yes. I guess perhaps if I had any reservations about Kreese, who I now want to call Creasy, but with him being kind of a cartoonish, over-the-top sort of villain, maybe that's now extending out into the Cobra Kai dojo as a whole. But I kind of don't care. Like, I'm just sort of on board with public mall karate fights breaking out. And yes, you do have to suspend your disbelief, but that's just sort of what you're signing up for watching a show like this, where you're just accepting the fact that fucking karate is going to take off in 2019 again in like this SoCal school, right? Which is already sort of a leap. That everybody's just going to do karate and is into these rival karate cliques and whatnot. So yeah, at this point, we kind of know where we're going, and yes, it is a pretty big escalation from where we started from. But once again, they put in the work to get us here, so I'm fine with it. I'm taking that journey.
Yeah, that's one thing about the series. Everything is earned. Nothing comes easy. Nothing just pops up and they dismiss it. No, all the characters, everything is earned. So, starting the second half of season 2, episode 6, is Take a Right. Johnny makes everybody do burpees until someone confesses. However, he gets a call from one of his old high school friends and excuses himself. Kreese knows that Hawk did it, but decides not to say anything. Meanwhile, Dimitri isn't pleased that Chris, a former Cobra Kai who attacked Dimitri in the mall with Hawk, is a Miyagi-Do, and Robbie is suspicious. However, Daniel reveals that he was once part of Cobra Kai and recounts his history with Terry Silver. Daniel says that while it's true that Cobra Kai is bad, it doesn't mean all students are bad, and persuades Robbie and Dimitri to end their feud with a new student. Johnny travels to San Bernardino, where he meets up with his old Cobra Kai dojo mates Bobby, Tommy, and Jimmy to support Tommy, who has a terminal illness, during a reunion at a local bar. Johnny reveals that he reopened Cobra Kai with John Kreese. Bobby becomes very wary due to their past and implores Johnny to move on from Cobra Kai. A man harasses a waitress with Johnny intervening and resulting in his Cobra Kai winning an all-out bar fight. Johnny and Tommy talk about their history, and the next morning, Tommy dies peacefully. Kreese is making Cobra Kai a more ruthless and tells Tori to finish one dojo mate. Miguel calls Kreese out on it, and Kreese says that mercy may be beneficial during a tournament, but in real life, they must finish the fight in order to win. While talking to Tori, she reveals that her mother had to work as a waitress to support her and her brother, and her mom would take leftovers home to feed them. Her mom's boss found out and fired Tori's mom, which caused Tori to decide that since the world showed no mercy, she shouldn't either. Miguel apologizes to Kreese, and Kreese accepts Miguel. Now, this is a lot to unpack in this episode. We get, some of the original Cobra Kais. We got, Rob Garrison as Tommy, Ron Thomas as Bobby, and Tony O'Dell as Jimmy. And this had, I love the bar fight that they all get into. I love, Tommy, the actor, which is Rob Garrison, actually had a terminal illness at the time of filming, and I believe he does pass. I think he passed away maybe before this episode dropped. But yeah, this just shows that everybody regrets how they are in high school. There's very few people that don't look back and think, oh, I was a jerk, oh, I did this, and all these Cobra Kais exactly are remembering that. So who do we lead off with? I'm totally lost my place. Let's just go back to Shawn. Shawn, what are your thoughts on Take a Right? Actually, no, sorry, it's Scott. I had a note. Scott, take a right. What are your thoughts?
I have some conflicting thoughts on this because it was nice to see like the original bad guys from Cobra Kai to catch up with them, and it was sad that in real life Rob Garrison, but like when I was watching this episode, I was like, damn, he really looks near death. And I looked it up, and I was like, because he was really near death. But with this, it just felt it was the first time ever, and it was bound to happen. But we're 16 episodes in, and this one felt like a filler episode to me. Because Kreese, is doing like psychological mind tricks with them to have more authority with Cobra Kai, but it was just like, oh, we need Johnny to take some time off and go hang out with his friends. Like, I don't know if they wrote it because they knew Rob Garrison was dying and they wanted to do a little little celebration for him. But one thing it did show was that all those people, all those guys, the only good thing to me that came out of it was all those guys hated Kreese for what he did and were like kind of ragging on Johnny for giving him a second chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think they had to, in order for Kreese to really suck his fangs, so to speak, into the students, Johnny needed to be out of the picture. And, I guess maybe they did take a little bit of a real life and maybe write that into the story. Tim, what are your thoughts on Take a Right?
Yeah, I kind of see Scott's point that it feels like we're perhaps slowing things down at the wrong time. Coming right off the halfway mark in the season to do this. I mean, it does help Johnny get kind of recentered, this experience he has with his old buddies, and yeah, gets him like out of the picture for a while so that Kreese can really assert his will over the dojo. So, I mean, it does accomplish some things. I think maybe they could have done that in any number of other ways. But it gives us a send-off for this, an actor who unfortunately was actually dying. So, I mean, that's kind of nice. We were able to do that. Help me out. This is a bad reference. Was Tommy the one from the first movie, the get him a body bag guy?
Yeah, put him in a body bag, yeah.
Okay.
And then it ends with him in a body bag, yeah.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
That was a little...
Yeah.
I mean, given that the actual actor is, like, I could see it if it's just like he's just playing someone with a terminal illness. It's a little bit of sort of symmetry, or gallows humor, honestly. But I don't know. Maybe he wanted them to do that. Asked for that to be written in, like, but that did hit a little weird.
All right. Shawn, what are your thoughts on Take a Right?
So it was a tough episode. I actually like this episode. I think it humanizes Johnny, and it also goes back and humanizes the original Cobra Kai guys. Like, we all thought they were a bunch of assholes back in the day, and now you see how they've all shifted, how they've all changed. The terminal thing was sad, and I know it brought them all together. And then, obviously it was a sad episode with him dying the next day out in the middle of the woods. But I think it was good to have a Johnny-centric episode kind of separating from everything else. And I think you said it. It also gave Kreese an opportunity to sink his claws further into Cobra Kai without Johnny around. So could have they done it differently? Yes, but I also think there was a necessity in separating the two to further cement Kreese as an evil son of a bitch and to cement Johnny as more of a human kind of person. So that's the way I looked at it.
And this episode dropped on April 24th, 2019, and Rob Garrison passed away in September of that year. So very sad, 59.
Well, he was knocking on death's door in April, so
yeah.
He looked rough.
Yeah, he did look rough.
So the next episode, season 2, episode 7, is Lull. Daniel goes to his karate dojo to see Kreese there. Kreese thanks him for taking the weak Cobra Kai and tells him that he'd be training his own Cobra Kai for the upcoming war against Miyagi-Do. Daniel argues that they're just kids, but Kreese ignores him. Daniel trains the students with Dimitri complaining but slowly improving. Amanda tries calling Daniel multiple times, and at the end of the day, Amanda confronts Daniel on the fact that he seems to care more about karate than his own job. Moon and Sam talk, and Moon asks if Sam is developing feelings for Robbie, but Sam brushes off the question. Meanwhile, Johnny returns from his trip and takes his Cobra Kai students into the woods to participate in a game. The dojo is split into two teams, and the last person standing with their headpin wins for their respective team. As the game progresses, Johnny is slightly shocked to see how merciless Tori is. Eventually, Miguel sees Hawk wearing Miyagi's Medal of Honor, realizes that him that vandalized the dojo. Hawk taunts Miguel on his feelings for Sam, and they eventually fight with Miguel emerging victorious. Miguel takes the Medal of Honor, but is ambushed and has his headband taken off by the new Cobra Kai student Stingray. Johnny asks Miguel why he's showing no mercy and warns him not to take the dark path. At the end of the day, Miguel goes to the Russo house and gives Robbie the Medal of Honor, asking him to give it to Daniel, and also tells Sam that he's sorry for leaving. He's sorry before leaving. When Sam asks Robbie who that was, Robbie quickly answers as nobody and puts the Medal of Honor in his pocket. Meanwhile, after realizing that Kreese hasn't changed and is trying to corrupt Johnny's students as he did in the past, Johnny severs tie with Kreese and expels him from Cobra Kai. Yeah, so this is where we get Stingray's big moment. He's basically Wooderson, but fat and less cool. He's a guy that's a little older, trying to hang out with the youngins, so to speak. Tim, what are your thoughts on Lull?
Stingray is terribly embarrassing, but by design. So that provides some levity in what could be kind of a too dramatic, like melodramatic, intense sort of episode, right? Because we're seeing some dissension within the ranks of Cobra Kai, where Hawk has kind of been the lieutenant, kind of been the second to Miguel, as kind of the prized pupil of this group, but he's kind of stepping up now and leaning more towards Kreese's philosophy, and making some pretty bad decisions along the way, as we know. And Miguel kind of has that inner turmoil, as he should, as sort of the sympathetic figure that he's been developed into. So more interpersonal drama. I'm all about it. Man, stealing that Medal of Honor, though, that's a super dick move, right?
Yeah.
But Miguel is trying to, patch that up as best he can. Although trying to escape consequences for Cobra Kai at the same time. He's like, look, just give it back. But we don't want any part of this anymore. when really, like, again, as Shawn said earlier, maybe we need some law enforcement involvement here. Things are getting kind of heated, way too heated.
Yep. Shawn, what are your thoughts on Lull?
Again, face heel turn. You're trying turning Robbie face, or not Robbie, but you're turning Miguel face by returning the medal. Robbie's kind of the heel for not telling Sam who it was at the door. I don't know. I'm conflicted on this episode. It's like Tim said, more interpersonal drama, very soap opera-y, and not one of my favorite episodes, if I'm going to be perfectly honest about it.
All right.
I feel like it's kind of just there, this one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Scott?
I love like the training episodes. So them doing like this training exercise, which actually seems pretty fun. It basically felt like a paintball game with like, you got to take the bandana from them to quote unquote kill them. But then I'm glad Miguel finally saw that Hawk's really a dick, but it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back for Miguel, because Miguel has Hawk dead to rights, and he looks at Kreese, and Kreese does like the head nod thing to finish him, and like he like kicks the shit out of him. So it's like, damn. And then like we forget about Stingray, and Stingray wins, which was just for comedic purposes. And like then you starting to see maybe Robbie Keane's true colors. Like he is sort of like his dad, where he's like, oh, who's at the door? And they say no one.
Mm-hmm.
But they're building up for the big season, what's going to happen at the end, which I don't want to we'll get to in a couple of episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then episode 8 of season 2 is called Glory of Love. Johnny starts to have dreams about Carmen and meets Carmen's new boyfriend. Hawk and Miguel make up, and Tori asks Miguel on a date to Escape Mall. Johnny also teaches Cobra Kai dojo to show mercy and honor, informs him that Kreese has been kicked out. Meanwhile, Dimitri finds the Medal of Honor, which Robbie planted in the JoJo backyard to prevent Sam from going back to Miguel. Sam asks Robbie to go on a date to the skate mall where there will be an 80s theme. Miguel helps Johnny set up a Tinder account and sets up Johnny with a bunch of dates. During the dates, Johnny is failing miserably and tries to send a message to Allie Mills Schwarber. But before deleting it, a woman bumps into him, which causes him to send the message. At the skate mall, Miguel and Tori awkwardly meet up with Robbie and Sam. With clear animosity between the two ladies, Tori purposely knocks down Sam when she sees Miguel trying to apologize to her. Sam pushes Tori down in return. As a result, Sam and Robbie are told to leave by security. Daniel apologizes to his wife while Johnny beats up Carmen's boyfriend after hearing the boyfriend planning to dump Carmen soon. Johnny soon meets up with Carmen and asks her on a date. So, Shawn, lots of 80s nostalgia in this one. And, gotta love the horrible Johnny's dates. So what do you think of Glory of Love?
So I would be remiss if I didn't call out the absurdity of the skating rink at the 80s theme, because that was a very big thing in the 80s, which I'm embarrassed to say I used to do quite often. So very tropey, very 80s, but I guess it also kind of goes with the theme of the series, so it makes sense in this series that's where, this confrontation happens and Tori trips Sam, so now you have this anxiety going on between them. I love Johnny on the Tinder and him screwing up all the dates. That made me laugh quite a bit. It's a decent episode. Very, very 80s centric. So yeah, I liked it quite a bit actually.
All right. Scott, any thoughts on Glory of Love?
Yeah, the Tinder stuff was hilarious. It's like, I love when Johnny tries to fight technology and technology wins, but then he's like having a date basically with a girl that's perfect for him because she does his move, what he mentions, like you bump into her not too hard and then you buy her a drink, and a girl does that, but because he likes Carmen so much, he hears Carmen's boyfriend saying, oh, she's just good for a couple of shags and then I'll find another one, and then he whoops his ass and then asks Carmen out on a date, which is a fun episode coming up. But it was just, we had to get more confrontation between Tori with a Y and Sam. So, and that's how she introduced herself to Miguel. We just had to get more confrontation for that. And, with like bad 80s stuff, which it took me a minute to figure out Sam was supposed to be pretty in pink. Did you guys get that off the top, or is it because I'm younger?
I probably got it initially because, I was,
You're a child of the 80s.
I was a child of the 80s, so I would have probably recognized it. Yeah. Yeah, I watched this a while ago. So
Sorry. I watched it Friday.
Yeah, that's why you're the freshest. The bunch. Tim, what are your thoughts on Glory of Love?
I mean, it does have some fun 80s porn in here. I don't know what else to call it. If anything, I think maybe this one is the one that feels the most like kind of a filler, where, yeah, we do get some advancement of the Tori with a Y versus Sam rivalry, but very little like of substance. And I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. It doesn't leave you with a whole lot to talk about, just in terms of it as a singular episode.
Yeah, the last two feel a little filler. Like I see your point on this one too. The dreaded filler episodes, right?
Like it's kind of like it's which you all know how it. Well, I mean, for something like The Mandalorian, I have a different take on it than a show like this, which is heavily serialized, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I guess maybe if anything, it's just the second season is not quite as well paced as the first. Even though they know what their destination is, they know how to get there. It's just sort of like you've got 10 episodes, and I don't know. It's sort of like it was more front end loaded. Looking back on it now and talking about it, I will say Carmen, Miguel's mother, becoming like more of an actual character in this series is sort of nice to see. Like we'll get, this romance subplot with her and Johnny, which I did not see coming at all. But I'm pretty supportive of.
All right, very cool. So the penultimate episode, so 9 of season 2, is called Popo. Robbie's mom returns, apologizes to Robbie about the way she's been treating him, and reveals that her boyfriend left her and she's going into rehab. Both Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do kids go to a party hosted by Moon just before school begins, and heavy drinking ensues during the party. The rivalry between Tori and Sam intensifies after Tori witnesses Sam drunkenly kiss Miguel, and Sam finds out that Miguel returned the Medal of Honor to Robbie. After Hawk pours a drink on Dimitri retaliates by calling out and humiliating Hawk through the form of a toast. The cops arrive just as Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do are about to fight, and everyone flees the party. Elsewhere, Johnny and Carmen go out on a date at a Mexican restaurant, but unexpectedly see Daniel and Amanda arrive. While Amanda and Carmen are away, Johnny and Daniel have a conversation about getting rid of Kreese, and Johnny finds out that Daniel has enrolled Robbie in high school. Much to the surprise and appreciation of Johnny, the two couples have a good night out, and in the end, Daniel and Johnny shake hands and seemingly bury the hatchet during the process. After Johnny and Carmen say goodnight to each other, he gets an unexpected visit from Robbie and a drunk Sam. So, Scott, what are your thoughts on Popo?
All right, I'm going to start with the LaRusso and Lawrence double date that it turns into. As I mentioned at the start, I love the Lawrence and the Russo scenes together, and it happened on the first season on episode 9, where they go out drinking and then discover that, Robbie is Johnny's son and he's been hanging out with LaRusso. So that was a nice little symmetry. Like they have like their own like special episode where they hang out as always episode 9 of each season. I did like that, and we discovered that LaRusso and Lawrence have more in common than they thought, because they're kind of dick to the waitress when she's like, "Why aren't you writing this down?" And they're like, she's like, "I got it in my head." It's like, listen, I don't tell you to go how to sell cars, LaRusso. Like, relax, okay? She's gonna get it with your messed up orders. But it was nice to see them, and they had fun, and they were dancing, and you see Johnny relax a little bit, and he's flirting with Carmen. And, you think at the end of the episode when there's the knock at the door that, I thought it was going to be Miguel was going to find them sleeping together, and that was going to, go all crazy. But it doesn't seem to be going that way. But then with like the party episode, with these teenage dramas, you need a party episode. So I'm shocked it took this long in season 2 to have it, because they had a couple in season 1, like with LaRusso coming back and like Sam's throwing a party, and sorry, I'm going back to season 1 on this. And LaRusso and Sam's throwing a party, and Amanda's like telling Daniel, "Why did you freak out? I would have murdered everyone in my house. Or I would have been murdered by my parents if they came home and I had a drinking party in the backyard at 16 years old. Like, I would be dead." But so they're like, oh, and then like Sam gets super drunk because she hates Tori with a Y, and they do the weird drinking games. You think everything's fine. This is where like I was on Dimitri's side with dealing with Hawk, but he went over the line where he's doing his little roast of Hawk, like saying he's a bedwetter and saying his name's Eli and like, you know, he's a nerd, which, you know, I think like the bedwetting thing, you could have said his name was, you know, he was a nerd and everything, and you still see that some of the nerd there is in there for Hawk because they talk about Doctor Who for a little bit, and you see that he gets excited, but then he has to like, you know, be a badass again, quote unquote. So it was a nice little extra that they added in for that. But and then Stingray shows up and like he brought like some old, like it looked like a prostitute, maybe it was Robbie's mom's friend or something, and she's like, I thought you said we were going to be your friends. He's like, these are my friends. And he's like some 40-year-old man hanging out with his 16-year-old. So it's like, Jesus. But yeah, I liked it, and it set the stage for what is coming, especially with the kiss between Sam and Miguel, which if I had something negative to say, is I thought that they were a little heavy-handed with this whole Sam and Miguel relationship that's back on now after Sam had like, you know, blocked him on Instagram and was not talking to him. It was like, you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. But, and like they're back together, but I guess they're teenagers, so it doesn't really matter.
All right. Tim, what are your thoughts on Pulpo?
Well, now I'm just visualizing Miguel walking in on Johnny taking his mom to Pound Town.
Doing karate moves on her in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, very acrobatic. Sexcapades going on there.
Watching his sensei strike hard, strike fast on his mom.
Real. All right, so you have that piece of shit Dimitri who is only going to be out. Who's only outdone by that piece of shit Sam, who cannot hold her liquor whatsoever, makes a fool of herself, and is going to fuck everything up now for Johnny, who, you know, all things were coming up Johnny going into this episode. He has a nice date with Carmen, a nice double date with LaRusso and his wife. Everything's really looking like they're having actual proper adult relationships now. And no, all this teenage drama has got to continue to intrude into their life and be solved with karate fights, allegedly. And it's sort of leaving this, you know, the penultimate episode is sort of leaving us in a weird place going into finale, because normally you expect like a big ramp up before they really blow it all out. And this was like, I mean, yeah, you had the high school party, but it was kind of a quiet episode just in terms of things really happening plot wise. I mean, the big thing is of course Robbie busting up in on his dad with the drunk Sam, but we don't actually see the fallout from that yet. So it's like, I don't know, it's sort of a weird place to leave off, especially going into the last episode of the season.
Mm-hmm. Shawn, and what are your thoughts? Anything to add on Pulpo?
I enjoyed the double date. I thought that was kind of a cool chemistry on with Scott. I always enjoy it when LaRusso and Johnny get together and do their little mancapades or whatever, and they look like they're about to become best buddies, and then something happens to shit the bed on it, like the end of this episode where you know at some point it's going to shit the bed when LaRusso finds out that his daughter's over at Johnny's place. You know, something's going to hit the fan. And the party, the party's tropey, but I kind of like the drunk off between Tori and Sam. I like Tori as a character. I just see her as being an evil bitch, and I kind of like that she's mean to Sam because Sam's kind of annoying. But yeah, I think what Tim says is about really being quiet this episode, but I think there's a lot of things that happen in this episode that set up the balls out episode we're about to talk about next.
Yeah, because one of the reasons Moon breaks up with all, doesn't she come out also in this episode? Moon.
Yeah,
yes.
Moon comes out. Yes. Yeah, she has a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So
that was Hawk's ex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hawk turned her lesbian apparently.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well,
Was it Hawk or was it Eli? I don't know. So the season finale is called No Mercy of season 2. Johnny allows Robbie and Sam to crash at his place for the night after the party. She doesn't tell her family. When Daniel finds out, he goes to Johnny's apartment to get her, and he and Johnny get into a fight. Daniel cuts his family off from Robbie and Johnny. During the first day back at school, Tori hijacks the PA system, calls out Sam for kissing Miguel at the party, shocking everyone, including Robbie. She then hunts Sam down and begins a fight with her. A chain of events leads to a brutal school brawl between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do. The fight climaxes with Miguel showing mercy to Robbie, but he responds by kicking Miguel from a school balcony, seriously injuring him. Robbie flees. Miguel's put on life support, and Sam is also treated in the hospital. Miguel's accident results in Johnny losing Carmen and control of Cobra Kai after his remaining students turn on him and join Kreese, who tells Johnny that his landlord allowed him to take over and have full ownership of the dojo while Johnny was in San Bernardino. The aftermath of the fight also provokes Amanda to demand Daniel to stop Miyagi-Do and karate altogether. A guilt-ridden Johnny goes to the beach where he throws his new cell phone into the sand. He did not notice that he received a Facebook friend request from Allie Miller-Schwarber, the ex-girlfriend of both Lawrence and LaRusso, who is currently a pediatric surgeon. So this was an insane episode. I really love this all-out brawl, and where they all basically pair off. You know, you see the two girls pair off. You see the alpha males, Robbie and Miguel, Hawk and Dimitri. You get the two kind of little nerdier kids fighting each other. You get the two other kids who were like a little heavy set and that were best friends. Yeah, this is like reminds me of like the end of the Avengers with the fight with the Chitauri, how the camera kept moving. You know, you see characters come into frame, and then we follow the other characters that were there, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I really love this episode. I love the the turn, where Kreese basically rises to the throne once again and usurps the power of Cobra Kai. Yeah, I really love this, and I was itching to get to season 3. So, Tim, talk about No Mercy.
Yeah, by the time you get here, you're maybe thinking, all right, I don't know if I want to watch a show that's going to climax in a school-wide karate riot. When you hear that, or when you say it out loud, that sounds like completely moronic. That is not going to be like sophisticated serialized television drama, right? But I mean, it's been just such a well written and well acted show that when it happens, you just go, well, here we are. We're doing a school-wide karate riot, and I'm fine with it. And I like that it's really just instigated by Tori being that like jealous evil bitch essentially, and it's down to her and Sam and Miguel, and of course then Robbie is going to get involved because he has been involved. And from there, everybody just kind of chooses their sides because karate really took off in this school.
Apparently, yeah.
Because that's what we do in 2019. So that's kind of the big centerpiece of this episode. So if that doesn't work for you, then the show itself just probably isn't your thing. But I really, again, I just think it goes back to how they have put in their work to get to this moment, and they can get away with it. So they do that, but there's still a lot of aftermath that we cover still in the same episode, with Miguel being on life support, like Robbie now on the outs with everyone, essentially. Kreese making his big play. Now he is fully in charge, like as kind of rough around the edges as Kreese is, he's still quite conniving and has his shit together in ways that Johnny's just does not. He snaked the dojo from Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So, I really thought that this was one of those like satisfying, cathartic sort of climaxes, but still set up a lot of things for the next season.
I don't know if you guys noticed, during some of the fights between Johnny and Daniel. My girlfriend Ellen actually told me this earlier, and then I went back and looked at it a little bit. The William Zabka actually kept up with karate after the first Karate Kid. So, but Ralph Macchio didn't, and you can clearly see, quite a difference there with, where there's a lot of body double action. So, Shawn, what do you think of No Mercy?
So the first thing I thought about was, where the fuck are all the adults at when these kids are beating the living shit out of each other in this school? And again, you have to suspend disbelief.
They're getting their asses beat too.
Well, apparently, yes. But like even back for the last episode, and we talked about how we kind of thought that was an odd pre-finale episode. I didn't see this fight coming. Like, I knew there was going to be something, but this all-out karate gang fight in the school with Tori with freaking brass knuckles with Spike's going to kill. Like, the bitch was going to kill her. I mean, She was freaking psycho. She's going to kill her. And then Miguel with that freaking, when he fell off that balcony and hit that rail, that looked absolutely savage. I thought he had a broken back. Like, I did not see that coming. I didn't see Robbie taking off. This was just all-out crazy, just batshit insane karate warfare. And like Tim said, if this is not your cup of tea, then you're watching the wrong show. And I even made a comment about this show, and I'm one of those ones with Wonder Woman that totally shit on Wonder Woman. But watching this show back and watching the season premiere kind of puts it in context for me, where you have to know what to expect in what you're watching and what they're going for. And I think this is a perfect example of, this is something you have to know where they're going for to totally enjoy, and I absolutely enjoyed this 100%. I also enjoyed the dojo being snaked from Kreese by the slimy landlord that comes into play yet again, the little slimy landlord that we always see in the 80s we talked about earlier. So, yeah, I thought it was a good ending. Said Robbie's on the run. Miguel's in the hospital. Now Johnny doesn't have an in with Carmen now because she blames him, and now he doesn't have a dojo either. So a lot happened in this episode to set up for season 3. So I totally love this finale. I thought it was great.
All right. And Scott, what do you have to say about No Mercy?
Just as these guys mentioned, like, we knew what we were getting into, but the whole, they showed one teacher trying to stop the fight and he gets his ass whooped, and other teachers like, I don't get paid enough for this. Which I was like, yeah, if I took a crescent kick to the dome, I would be like, no, I'm done. Let these kids battle to the death. But I love that everyone gets their shit in, basically. Like, you see Hawk just beating the hell out of everyone until Dimitri, finally gets his just dues, which I was okay with that, because like I said, I'm not a Hawk fan. I hope everything bad happens to him and him only. But I did like when the two little kids are fighting who look like they're about 8.
I just thought he got jobbed out way too easily, because everything about this was otherwise incredibly realistic. I didn't like Hawk going into that trophy case, man. Come on.
I loved it.
Dimitri is not that skilled of a karateist.
He got lucky. A broken clock is right twice a day. So that's the way I see it. He just got lucky. But I did like how the little kids were fighting, and you see the one person who's doing something, the school resource officer, picks both of them up and just throws them on his shoulder like, bags of flour. So that was nice. And I did like that Stingray, who's a piece of shit, was trying to get a job there as a school resource officer, and you see him attacking.
Beating up children.
Yeah, he's beating up the Miyagi-Do kids. And
he's chopping them.
Yeah, he's just chopping them, like Judy chop. And I really thought Miguel was killed. I was like, damn, did he get signed on to do a Marvel movie or something? Because that little rough. It showed him and that. Yeah, I thought he was dead. And
the little Hans Gruber fall over the rails as he was falling down. That was pretty good visual.
Fucking kill a kid in this show.
Once they got up to the second floor, I was like, it's like when someone's climbing the cage in wrestling. I was like, someone's falling off of this. Someone's doing the Foley bump, and it had to be Miguel. Sorry, man. But I thought it was great, and I love at the end, near the end of the episode, where Lawrence and LaRusso are both in the the elevator, and they just don't say a word to each other because they both know they caused this. And Then we find that Kreese has made his move finally and let it be known to Lawrence, and he's taken over Cobra Kai. So Lawrence is on the outside looking in and wondering what the hell's going to happen with season 3 with a lot of plot lines to resolve.
Yeah, and that brings the end of season 2. So where were you guys? All right, now most of us have watched all of season 3, but we're only going to talk about the season premiere tonight, and we will get to the rest of the season over a bunch of episodes. But what were your thoughts going in, to season 3? What were you hoping for? What do you think was going to happen? What were your initial thoughts? We'll start with Shawn. What were you thinking, what was going to happen this season?
Well, I wanted to see the resolution with what was going to happen with Kreese. Obviously, I wanted to see what happened with Miguel. I don't know how you do a karate show with him as one of the centerpieces doing karate when he's laid up and probably has a broken back or he's a paraplegic. That's basically it. Like, how are they going to resolve all this conflict? What happens with Robbie? Why is Tori going to go to prison because she tried to kill Samantha? I mean, there's a lot of. I just wanted to see they spun so many layers on the season finale. I just wanted to see resolution all of them.
Yeah,
and how they were going to play out.
Scott, what were your thoughts after season 2 and leading into season 3?
Is Miguel dead? Because I don't know. At the very least, he's probably Jason Streeted. So it was rough. I wanted to see what was going to happen with everyone. Are the cops going to be called? Will people actually get in trouble for this? I mean,
there ain't no fucking cops in Cobra Kai.
The cops are the referees in the All Valley tournament. That's the only cops. But it was. I was just looking forward to it, and luckily I was able to just run through, watch season 2 finale, watch the trailer for season 3, which got me even more hyped because I was like, oh shit, they're going places, which we're not going to get to tonight. But it was just interesting. Like, I was not expecting Robbie to go on the run. I thought, he would get expelled or something. And, actually Tori should get expelled. She's the one that started this rumble. Actually, everyone should be expelled. There should be no suspensions. These kids should go to juvie. And if they did Cobra Kai juvie edition, that would have been great. But
freaking LaRue, so Johnny they should all be arrested.
Yeah, just everyone. Delinquency of minors, like, come on. Ugh.
Fucking Stingray should be in prison for multiple things.
We should be watching documentaries on HBO right now. It's a 7-part documentary about the karate cult that exploded in the valley in 2020 or whatever.
Yeah, Investigative Reports wants to know.
Saved by the Bell, the karate years. That's what.
Tim, what were your thoughts after season 2 leading into season 3?
Just kind of. Like, how are they going to top this? Like, are they going to try to, once you've done an all-out, again, school-wide karate riot, one of two things. Like, you either say one good turn deserves another and go even crazier, which is hard to believe they could, but, I mean, it's kind of where we are now. Or you sort of start to draw it back and have more of a grounded show and just sort of go in a slightly different direction. And I just wanted to see which path they would take. I will say that's similar to my reservations over the John Kreese reintroduction as of the season 1 finale. Like, I just do not give any shits whatsoever about the Allie possibly coming back thing. Again, it feels like enlargement of a character who the films did not even think was that important, really. Like, yeah, she was in that first one, but by the sequel, she's totally out of the picture and, like, never mentioned again. So it's just, I don't know, it just was annoying. But I felt like clearly we're setting up for at least an Allie appearance of some sort, yes. Even if she wasn't going to be like a fixture necessarily of a third season.
She should just do a Zoom call and tell Johnny and LaRusso to get the fuck over her.
Well,
yes, that'd be amazing.
It's been 34 years.
And also the added element of what happened to her on the first season of The Boys adds a little bit of curiosity to if she'll appear in season 3 or not.
Yeah, because you got to figure. I mean, season 3 has been in the can for a while. We thought we were going to see it like around the same that spring, of 2020, much like the previous seasons had dropped, and with it being the end of the world, much like everything, just it stopped, and we've had this very protracted delay between seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That I have a sneaking suspicion that they are more ahead than we know in terms of
I kind of think so too.
tape, and I think season 4 might be in the can. And I mean, I don't know how many seasons this could go. I mean, we could talk about that, when we wrap up in a couple episodes of this podcast series. So here we are, season 3 just dropped. Like I said, 3 of us have seen the entire season. 1 of us hasn't. He's still Scott. What are you up to now?
Episode 2.
Episode 2. Okay, so
and I haven't finished yet, actually.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm almost there, but I need to rewatch whatever episode I'm on because it got late, and you know how it is when you're watching something. You've been at it for a while, and you just start to fade. It's like you saw it, but you didn't really see it.
Yeah, you didn't. It didn't sink in. Like you didn't retain it.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of what I do nowadays. But yes, sorry, I didn't mean to tell a skew. So season 3 launched the entire season. Now let me ask you guys this: are you a fan of the Netflix dump, or do you prefer what it seems to be Hulu, Amazon, and Disney Plus are doing, where you get 1 episode a week?
I really liked. I used to think I liked the Netflix dump, but after watching all 10 episodes of this in a row on New Year's Eve, I grew to appreciate the Mandalorian drop because I enjoyed kind of sinking through 1 episode and kind of get my head wrapped around it. And I feel like on these mass drops, you want to get through it all and you can't stop watching. And then when you're done, you're done. And then you have to wait another year after you watched everything in one day. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah, there's so much pressure to keep up, because you don't want to get spoiled, and that there are people that, that they were up all night when this stuff got dropped, and I'm like, I don't have that kind of energy, That's why I was kind of like, we want to do this series, but it's out there, so people are going to be watching it. That's why we're doing this in 4 parts. But Tim, will you which way do you prefer?
I go back and forth, and I think at the end of the day, it just depends on the material. With The Mandalorian, the week-to-week traditional model suits them very well because just that show is so damn cinematic. Like every episode feels like a mini movie, and you want some time to really digest each one. Like you would not appreciate that as much if you just burn through one after another after another. But for something like this, which is trying to think of how to put it, like kind of trashy and pulpy.
Yeah.
Let's face it, like and super serialized. I feel like it's fine just to binge it and be like, okay, I'll have another. And it's paced in a way that it feels like it's tailored for that model because they know people binge these shows, right? 30 minutes a pop, and there's just crazy shit going on up and down the entire season, and they know people are not going to be able to put that remote down, or pick it back up. Yeah, and sort of campy and just plays for the cheap seats, while still being pretty well written. So it just depends on what the show is and how it's, the show needs to be written to the distribution model, I feel like. I think that's where we are today. That's the reality of it. And there may be a happy middle ground where maybe you get a few episodes dropped at a time, then you just get drip fed 1 or 2 a week here until your finale. Maybe do that as a double bill. I don't know. That might work pretty well too. Yeah. They kind of did that with Mando season 1, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a hard and fast preference, really. I mean, I guess it's nice to have it all there to watch at my own leisure. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, Stranger Things, I hate having to, go through those so fast because there's so much to unpack in those episodes. I mean, I did The Boys to catch up, and that was a lot. I mean, those are hours, too, so that was a lot harder. Scott, which do you prefer?
I prefer the weekly slow drip because you can let it chew on it more, let it marinate. I think for the hour shows, you should just do one a week. Like with The Boys, I was able to sit on it and think about it a lot. With Mandalorian, the same. We were able to have like these discussions. But with the 30-minute shows, I can see dropping 2 a week, so you're done in 5 weeks if you're doing 10 episodes instead of just dropping it at once. Because like Sean said, we run through them, and like how how Tim was saying, we run through them, and we're just like, oh great, now I got to wait another year and a half for this. So it's like I want, like, I'm okay with the slow drip. Like I'm glad that television has gotten away from which ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox really haven't gotten away from the 23 episode season. Mm-hmm. I would like it more if it's 10 to 12 episodes. There's no filler episodes. Everything's concise and needs to be told. Like, we don't need no lost random episodes about 2 people that end up getting buried alive. Like, that was just a filler. So, I would be okay with, like I said, just doing it weekly. That's why I think like Disney and everything's doing it for. But Netflix has dug their heels in so much with this. That's what they're known for. Like you said, Andy, with the Stranger Things, when that came out, I ran through that the whole 4th of July weekend and was not really able to marinate on everything that was going to happen. I was just like, I just need to know because I don't want to be spoiled by logging into Twitter, talking to someone at work. And that's what it is. It's like, you just don't want to be spoiled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much pressure. I actually like that episode of Lost, by the way. I mean, when Nikki and Paolo just show up out of the blue, like, what's going on, Hurley? Like, who the fuck are these people? But that was, like, actually a really fun. I was actually sad to see them killed off in that episode. I mean, but they did listen to the fans. So, Cobra Kai, Season 3, Episode 1 is called Aftermath. Sorry. 2 weeks after the school fight, the All Valley community is still shaken up, coming to grips with the consequences. So the school has put in an anti-physical contact rule in action. Sam, still shaken by the fight, is suffering from panic attacks, and the duel between the 2 dojos is still strong. Johnny, who wants to visit Miguel in the hospital, purposely hurts himself so he can sneak into the ICU and tells Miguel words of encouragement. When Daniel finds out Robbie stole a van from the dealership, Daniel and Robbie team up to find him. So, Sean, what do you think of the start of the season in Aftermath?
So there's a couple things. I love the beginning of the show with the news stories, and they have all these sit-ins, and the interview they're talking about karate died in the 80s. So I really like the opening with the news on this. I like the stereotypical drunk Johnny at the bar, and he gets into the bar fight because the guy starts talking shit about the Cobra Kid, and nobody cares. He wants to watch his sports. There's the town hall thing where, where they all shit on LaRusso, which I think is great. I love that. The karate footloose line was a good one. There's just a lot of the karate footloose pot.
Turned into a karate footloose.
Yeah. The person in the crowd yelling, "Hey, I heard it was your fault," kind of going back to that symmetry of him being the true heel of this whole thing. And there's just a lot to unpack here in the first episode. And the other thing that's Robbie's stealing the car and they're tracking him on the GPS. Sam's a pariah at school. Johnny's the doctor. Aisha's gone. Her parents have taken her out of school and they're moving away because of the whole fiasco. There's just a lot here, and I don't want to go into every detail of the episode, but I thought it was a pretty satisfying opening from where I expected us to be. Which I thought there would be more legal involved and probably more police activity and more arrests. But again, it wouldn't be a karate show or it would be Cobra Kai if that happened. But I thought it was a really strong opening to the first season, and I really liked the episode. It was an easy 30-minute to watch.
All right. Scott, what do you think of the season premiere Aftermath?
I'm glad that, the adults finally did something and was like, hey, there's some consequences to these actions. It sounds like everyone was suspended for 2 weeks, which, except for Robbie, who's still on the run. But it was nice to see that everyone was like, oh, this isn't normal. And like how Sean was saying, the karate footloose, I thought was great. it popped me. Time is not going to heal all wounds. I can see how Tim's going to have issues with Sam this season. So, and, Miguel is screwed up. And Johnny Lawrence is also a little screwed up in the head. Is like he can't think of a way to just act like you know where you're going and just walking in the hospital, he thinks he has to give himself a concussion. So that's probably CTE right there. To get in there to see him, and obviously his mom wants nothing to do with him now. But and then the Russo, I do like that their reputation has been in tatters, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I actually made a comment. Karate ruins your business. It's what I put for LaRusso. If you do karate, your business is over.
Yes, I advise against watching shows like this with somebody who works in the medical field, aka my girlfriend, the nurse, because I heard a lot of that's not an ICU unit. Her scars have moved. They wouldn't let him in to do. Yeah, it's a lot. Very interesting. Tim,
scars have moved.
Yeah, she's like, Sam's scars are on the other arm. That's just a
that's funny
faulty production thing. But Tim, what are your thoughts on Aftermath?
I mean, I suppose I should cut Sam a break, considering she is a traumatized child who is perhaps suffering from PTSD now. If that's really the direction they're going to go here.
Well, I mean, if you're going to hit someone with brass knuckles and spikes, it might traumatize me too. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, it feels a little heavier than what this show likes to do. I mean, we're coming right off of a school-wide karate riot, so it just sort of feels like all bets are off after that. But I don't know. Maybe to my question earlier of what path are they going to take, maybe we are, dialing it back now, which has its merits. Nice to see the adults acting like adults finally, and Johnny and LaRusso teaming up pretty much right away, right off the bat, because they're always such a cool pairing, and we wasted no time getting back to that. Just immediately being, the bigger people in the room saying, this got way, way out of hand, and we realize it's our fault. We can't undo it, but we need to put our silly karate rivalry behind us, at least for the time being, because we need to get some answers.
Yep, yeah. So a lot to unpack, but we're going to pause right here. We're going to put a pin in it because we're going to do this in a 4-part series, as I mentioned earlier. So I know we cover a lot, and I thank you guys for recapping the first 2 seasons with me. Kind of just get us to how we got here, because like I said, we've not talked about Cobra Kai, and I know it's a favorite of a lot of us here at Place to Be Nation, people that listen to the pods and participate on the Place to Be group. So we really wanted to do this series some justice. So I appreciate you guys and those of you listening to hang with us. So this will be a 4-part series. We will cover episodes 2, 3, and 4 on the next part, 5, 6, and 7 on the third part, and finally 8, 9, and 10 on episode 4. So yeah, these should be dropping once a week for about 4 weeks. Also, don't forget the WandaVision will be starting when we're in the middle of this, so you may get a double dose of us for a couple weeks. So that should be fun for everybody. I know it's a treat for me. So I want to thank Tim, Shawn, and Scott for getting together and kicking off this short series on Cobra Kai Season 3 on Pop Goes to the Couch. I am Andy Atherton. Thank you all for listening, and we'll check you out on Part 2 of this 4-part series. Take care, everybody.